The jungle awakens. A pale grey light seeps into the eastern sky as the tropical jungle awakens. Dawn comes softly in the Maya lowlands. A heavy mist clings to the towering ceiba and ramon trees, droplets of dew beading on broad banana leaves. The air is cool and thick with the rich scent of wet earth and night-blooming flowers. For a moment, there is a hush, as if the rainforest holds its breath at daybreak. Then the chorus of morning sounds begins. First, the trill of insects and the distant calls of birds echo through the canopy. Parrots squawk and chuckle as they flutter from their roosts, and somewhere high in the branches, a toucan rattles its eerie croaking croon. In the undergrowth, tree frogs chirp their last songs before the heat of day. From afar comes the low, haunting call of a howler monkey, rising to a startling roar that belies its small size. The jungle's voice grows louder with each passing minute of light. Beneath this natural symphony lies an unforgiving wilderness. In the dim dawn, a shadowy form slips through the foliage at the edge of a clearing, a jaguar returning from its nightly hunt. It moves with silent grace, amber eyes surveying the trees, then disappears like a phantom. Such apex predators rule the darkness here. Even the bravest Maya villager gives the jungle's edge a respectful berth at night. By morning, the great cat is gone, yet its presence lingers in paw prints by the riverbank and the hush of smaller creatures. The people know they share this realm with many fierce neighbors. Venomous snakes lie coiled underfoot in the leaf litter, including the deadly fer-de-lance pit viper, whose bite can be fatal. A step off the safe path requires care and the alertness that is taught from childhood. On occasion, a bright coral snake may slither across a footpath, or a python-like boa hangs looped in a tree, waiting for unwary prey. This rainforest teems with life, but not all of it is friendly to humans. The Maya have a saying that the jungle is alive but indifferent. It does not care about you, and one must always be cautious. As the sun's first rays pierce the high canopy, golden beams play through the gauzy morning mist. They illuminate a world both lush and treacherous. Under the dense foliage, it is still twilight, the ground dappled with shifting light. Gnarled roots and tangled vines crisscross the forest floor, creating natural snares for the unwary. Traveling even a short distance in this terrain means hacking through impenetrable vegetation, ducking under twisted lianas, and clambering over roots as tall as a man's waist. The Maya who live here carry machetes whenever they venture beyond cleared ground, knowing that the jungle quickly closes any path left untended. This green world can feel like a cathedral. Giant tree trunks rise like columns into the heavens, but also a labyrinth, ancient and untamed. In many ways, it is an inhospitable place, with deadly snakes, scarce water, and vegetation. So thick it swallows whole cities. Yet it is here that the Maya people built their home, adapting to the rainforest's challenges with skill and reverence. The humidity begins to thicken even in these early hours. Soon, the pleasant cool of dawn will yield to a moist, heavy heat. By mid-morning, the air will feel like warm bathwater against the skin. Clouds of insects stir in the haze. Butterflies of every color, bright yellow, iridescent blue, flutter through sunbeams. Dragonflies skim above puddles left by last night's rain. But less welcome insects are waking too. Mosquitoes begin to whine in the shadows. Few creatures are as vexing. Their high-pitched hum foretells pain, itching, vexation, disease. In the wet season, swarms of mosquitoes descend at dusk and dawn. their bites bringing stinging welts or even deadly fevers. The Maya cover themselves in wood smoke or smear spicy crushed leaves on their skin to keep these tiny pests at bay. Still, in the muggy evenings, the people often fall asleep to the distant sound of droning wings outside their netting, a nightly reminder of the jungle's smallest tormentors. Water, the source of life, shapes the Maya's daily struggle with this land. During the long rains of summer, water is everywhere, trickling from leaves, pooling in creeks, seeping into the limestone earth. But as the dry season deepens, the jungle withholds its bounty. Beneath the surface, the porous limestone has few rivers, so the Maya learned to seek out hidden cenotes, natural sinkhole wells, and to collect rainwater diligently. In some areas, they dug clay-lined reservoirs to save the downpours for lean times. A clear-running stream can vanish to a muddy trickle by late spring. The inhabitants know which vines to cut for a few drops of drinkable liquid, which tree hollows might hold a last sip of rain. Thirst in this heat is a constant companion, and a neglected village could wither without water. Thus, from youth, they are taught to revere the water sources, the deep blue cenote pools and quiet aguadas, seen as gifts from the gods. Drought is a worry never far from mind. A few weeks without rain can shrivel the maize in the fields and send women walking miles to the nearest well at dawn. Chak, the rain god, commands both hope and fear here, for a missed rain could spell hunger. The jungle might be a green paradise when clouds bless it, but it can turn brutally dry and withholding under a merciless sun. And yet, despite the perils, the Maya rainforest at daybreak is undeniably beautiful and alive. As the morning light grows stronger, the mist lifts like a curtain to reveal a vibrant green world. Birds of brilliant plumage, quetzals with their emerald tails, oropendulas with yellow feathers, flit between branches. A family of spider monkeys swings through the treetops, their long limbs silhouetted against the sky as they greet the day with soft chattering. The jungle provides as well as in dangers, wild fruits, game, fish in the creeks, and medicinal herbs in abundance for those who know where to look. The Maya have learned which plants heal a fever or soothe a sting, and which berries are safe to eat. In the deep ecology of this land, they see a reflection of the divine. Every hill and cave and tree is the domain of a spirit. To survive here, one lives with the jungle, not against it. Each morning, as they step outside, the Maya acknowledge the forest around them with a quiet respect in their hearts. At the edge of a small clearing, the jungle gives way to a human enclave, a humble Maya village just stirring from sleep. As dawn's light filters in, the structures of thatch-roofed homes come into view, clustered in the clearing like mushrooms sprouting after rain. A massive ceiba tree stands nearby, its buttressed roots snaking over the ground. This giant, sacred tree watches over the settlement, its high crown still shrouded in thinning mist. Dewdrops rain softly from its broad leaves with each faint breeze. Under its protective branches, the silhouettes of huts and a few slender plumes of smoke can be seen. One by one, orange glimmers appear in the dimness as small cooking fires are kindled for the day. The comforting scent of wood smoke and maize husks begins to drift through the cool air. In a moment, the tranquility of jungle dawn is joined by signs of human life. The faint murmur of voices, the stirrings of domestic animals, the crackle of flames being fed with dry sticks. Within their walls of mud-plastered wicker and beneath roofs woven from palm fronds, Maya families awaken to begin another day. Here, Human habitations and the wild landscape exist side by side, each respecting the other's domain. As the golden sun finally crests the eastern hills, it bathes the clearing in gentle light. The great ceba's highest branches glow green gold, and its colossal trunk casts a long, cool shadow over the huts below. The jungle has awakened, and so have the people nestled in its heart. A new day in ancient Maya lands has quietly begun, full of promise and toil. Homes beneath the ceiba tree. Morning in the village unfolds slowly, peacefully. Beneath the venerable ceiba tree, which the Maya holds sacred as the bridge between worlds, the thatched homes of the community cluster around a hard-packed dirt courtyard. The ceba's enormous canopy provides welcome shade as the sun climbs, its leaves forming dancing patterns of light on the ground. This tree is the center of village life, both practically and spiritually. In many Maya towns, a ceiba stands in the plaza by tradition, and here too, its presence is felt in every household's daily rhythm. Not only does it symbolize the connection of the people to the heavens and underworld, it also offers very real shelter from sun and rain, and even materials. Its seed pods yield silky fibers that villagers gather to weave into cloth and stuffing for quilts, and its bark and leaves are used in medicines and teas. Birds chatter among its branches. A family of orioles has nested there, their hanging pouch-like nests swaying gently. As dawn becomes day, chickens begin to cluck and scratch at the earth around the homes, and a few scrawny dogs trot between doorways, tails wagging lazily. The homes are simple but sturdy, built with wisdom passed down through generations. Each house has a frame of wood or bamboo poles, plastered with a mixture of mud, clay, and straw to form walls, a technique called wattle and daub. The roofs are high-peaked and thatched with palm leaves or grass, which keeps the interiors surprisingly cool and dry. In the soft light, the thatch still glistens with dew. Most houses are one-room dwellings, sometimes with a small partition or loft for storage. They are arranged in small clusters, often the homes of an extended family, set around a shared yard. Indeed, several generations commonly live side by side. Grandparents, adult sons and daughters with their little ones, all cooperating to get through the day. The courtyard is their communal living space, an outdoor kitchen, workshop, and playground, all in one. A few hut roofs have thin trails of smoke snaking out through the thatch, as cooking fires are kindled on the earthen floors inside. These homes have no chimneys. The smoke finds its way out through the porous thatch, lending each hut a smoky aroma and helping to drive out mosquitoes. In one hut near the ceba's massive trunk, a Maya mother tends the hearth. She rises before the sun each day, and now she is already awake, coaxing embers from last night's fire back to life. Crouching by the 3 stones that form the family's hearth, she gently blows on the coals until orange sparks dance upward and tiny flames flicker. She adds a few sticks of copal-scented wood. The fire crackles, illuminating her face in a warm glow amidst the dim interior. Her baby, still swaddled in a woven cotton blanket, sleeps in a hammock strung diagonally across the hut. The mother moves deftly, careful not to disturb the child. With the fire now stable, she places a flat clay griddle, a comal, over the stones to heat. Today, like every day, she will make fresh tortillas for her family's breakfast. Reaching into a clay pot, the woman takes out a portion of damp, ground corn dough, masa, prepared from maize kernels that she boiled and soaked last night with a pinch of lime to soften them. But before it became dough at all, those kernels had to be ground by hand. In fact, only a short while ago, in the blue hour before dawn, she was outside on the patio with her metate, the stone grinding slab, pushing a handheld grinding stone back and forth to crush the softened corn. Even at that early hour, the rhythmic sound of stone on stone could be heard in the village as several women began the day's essential labor. The motion is repetitive and strenuous. She knelt and leaned her weight onto the heavy cylindrical mano, grinding the corn again and again until it formed a wet, fine paste. It is hard work. Studies by archaeologists have found that Maya women traditionally spent nearly 5 hours a day grinding corn to feed an average family. Indeed, the marks of this lifelong task are visible in her strong arms and the slight calluses on her palms. Yet it is work she takes pride in, for maize is life to the Maya. This daily dedication is what transforms simple corn into nourishing tortillas, the very food that her family's strength depends on. Now, with the dough ready and the komel hot, she pinches off a bit of masa and begins to pat it into tortillas. Her hands move with practiced confidence, slapping the dough in a steady rhythm that is almost musical. Pat, pat, turn. Pat, pat. She shapes a small round disc, smooth and even. She lays it on the komal. It sizzles faintly. Soon, the toasty aroma of baking corn spreads through the air. One by one, she forms more tortillas, placing them around the first. In a few minutes, she uses her fingertips, toughened by years of this task, to deftly flip each tortilla, so it can cook on the other side. A thin wisp of steam rises, carrying the comforting smell that will rouse her family to start their day. Breakfast will be simple: fresh tortillas, perhaps with a smear of mashed beans or a sprinkle of coarse salt and chili. If they are lucky and diligent, there may also be some honey collected from the wild stingless bees they keep in hollow logs at the edge of the clearing, or a few eggs from their scrawny chickens. On special days, or if they have a surplus to trade, there might even be cacao. The woman has some cacao beans stored safely in a jar. When lightly fermented, roasted, and ground, those beans can be whipped with hot water into a bitter chocolate drink for her husband to take to the fields. But cacao is precious. More often, the family drinks atole, a hot maize gruel, flavored with cinnamon-like tree bark or vanilla orchid when available. For now, she settles for a clay cup of posel, cool maize gruel from yesterday, thinned with water, to refresh herself after the exertion of grinding. Outside, under the ceiba, the village truly comes to life. The men emerge from their houses, stretching their arms and rolling their shoulders to loosen muscles stiff from the previous day's labors. A farmer in a simple cotton loincloth and tunic splashes his face from a bowl of water his wife drew from the well at first light. The cool water shocks him fully awake. He picks up a woven carrying strap and loops it over his forehead, letting it hang loose. By day's end, it will support a heavy basket of maize cobs or firewood against his back. He ties the laces of his leather sandals and makes sure his sharpened wooden digging stick and stone-bladed hoe are where he left them. These are his primary tools for farming. Metal plows and beasts of burden do not exist in his world, so his own strength and simple tools must suffice. Nearby, another man uses a stone to sharpen a machete, preparing it for clearing brush. The metallic chink of stone on metal rings out. This broad-bladed tool is one of the few metal objects in the village, acquired through trade, its iron likely forged by distant highland peoples. and it is prized for its ability to slice through stubborn vegetation far better than any stone axe. Each man carries a rolled mat or sack with his midday meal, tortillas with maybe some pepper or roasted squash, and a gourd full of water for the hot hours ahead. Women step out as well, some with babies on their hips, older children toddling behind. A grandmother with greying hair, wrapped in a faded cotton shawl, seats herself on a low stool in the courtyard and begins spinning cotton thread on a spindle, her hands working the fluffy white cotton into fine yarn. In the diffused morning light, one can see other hints of domestic industry. A half-finished woven textile on a backstrap loom, tied between two trees, where a young woman had been weaving a colourful hue-pill blouse before dawn. A stack of clay pots drying in the sun near one hut, moulded by an aunt who is skilled in pottery. Bunches of herbs hanging under the eaves, gathered the day before for both cooking and medicine. At the edge of the clearing, a small boy checks the wooden hive log of the family's stingless bees. These bees, tiny and black, buzz softly around the log's carved entrance. The boy taps lightly and grins as a bit of golden honey drips out. It will be harvested later as a sweet treat and for ritual drinks. Even the animals stir. A pair of lean turkeys cluck and peck at insects near the cooking hut, and the family dog, a small, mostly hairless breed, rises from where it slept near the warm ashes and stretches contentedly. The dog wanders over to the tortilla griddle, sniffing for any crumbs, and the mother chuckles, tossing it a piece of tortilla as she would to a well-behaved child. The whole scene is one of domestic harmony and routine. Here, daily life follows the rhythm of work and ritual. Families live in these thatched roof houses around their shared courtyard, each member with tasks that begin at sunup. Women grind maize for tortillas and prepare cacao or atole, chatting with each other as they work, their voices low and musical. Men ready themselves to farm the milpa fields, to craft tools, or perhaps to walk to a nearby market with goods to trade. The children do not idle either. Even the little ones have chores. A girl of perhaps 7 summers balances a water jar on her head, proudly imitating her mother as she carries it from the village cenote. A slightly older boy gathers kindling wood in a basket, his skinny arms straining to drag a larger branch toward his mother's woodpile. Through helping, they learn the skills that will sustain them. Yet there is also time for play and learning. A gaggle of young children chase each other around the ceba's roots, giggling and kicking up dust. Their game sends a pair of iguanas scuttling away into the brush. Within each household, roles are well defined and cooperation is key. The grandmother who spins cotton will later teach the older girls the intricate art of weaving, how to brocade patterns of butterflies and stars into cloth. The grandfather, before he heads to the fields, murmurs a few words of prayer at a tiny household shrine set against the base of the ceba. Lighting a bit of copal incense, he asks the ancestral spirits and the ceba's guardians for a good day and the protection of his family. Smoke wafts thinly from the incense resin, mingling with the wood smoke of breakfast fires under the tree's canopy. In doing this each morning, he reinforces the bond between the human world and the spirit world, symbolized by the great ceba that connects earth to sky. In Maya belief, this world tree's roots reach down into Xibalba, the underworld. Its trunk stands on the earthly plane, Cab, and its branches arch into the 13 levels of the upper world, the realm of the gods. To live, literally, under the ceba's boughs is to live under the watch of the gods. and in the embrace of nature. The villagers take comfort in that. All around, one can observe that while life is simple, it is not easy. The structures are modest and offer little beyond basic shelter. Inside a hut, the floor is just smooth, packed dirt. There are no chairs or beds, only woven reed mats for sitting and sleeping. A few clay jars and baskets store their scant supplies of food. Some dried corn ears hanging from the rafters, a net bag of beans, perhaps a gourd of salt obtained from coastal traders. The hut's only illumination by night is the warm glow of the hearth or a pottery oil lamp. There is no excess here. Every item the family owns is functional and often made by their own hands. By modern standards, it is a life of material poverty. The harshness shows in the little details. The smoke from indoor fires has stung many eyes, and some of the elders have a perpetual cough from years of inhaling it. During the rainy season, floors can become muddy and bugs plentiful. During dry season, dust coats every surface. Privacy is scarce in a one-room home, and families large. Yet the Maya make do cheerfully, adapting to inconveniences with ingenuity. They plaster their floors with white lime to harden them and reduce pests. They hang their sleeping hammocks off the ground to avoid scorpions or rodents. They plaster and repaint the walls each year to keep them strong against rain. They work together to repair each other's roofs after storms. In these ways, the community shares the burdens of daily life, so that no one family is left to struggle alone. As the sunbeams begin to slant into the courtyard, the soft glow of early morning shifts to the brighter light of full day. Breakfast is ready. The mother takes the stack of warm tortillas off the comal and wraps them in a clean cloth. She pours a bit of atole into a painted gourd bowl, its rising steam carrying the comforting smell of cooked corn. Her husband, the farmer, comes to her and takes the bowl with gratitude, sipping the thick gruel quietly. The family gathers around on low stools or mats. They do not have a formal table, just a communal meal on the floor. They eat with their hands, using tortillas as utensils to scoop up bites of spiced beans from a shared clay dish. The children munch happily on plain tortillas. For them, it's both breakfast and a hand warmer in the cool air. There is little conversation as everyone devours the simple fare. They have a long day ahead and need the energy, but there is a sense of warmth and unity in the circle. A rooster struts by and lets out a crow, causing the toddler to laugh and toss a tortilla scrap its way. The adults chuckle gently. These small moments of joy and togetherness sustain them through the daily grind. After eating, the men prepare to leave for the fields. The farmer stands and adjusts the carrying strap across his forehead, attached to a woven basket on his back. His wife hands him a few fresh tortillas, wrapped in leaves to take for midday meal, along with a gourd filled with water and a pinch of lime to keep it sweet. He kisses his baby's forehead as the infant stirs in the hammock and exchanges a few quiet words with his father, who will work alongside him. With machete in one hand and digging stick in the other, he heads out down a narrow jungle path toward the milpa, the collective farm clearing about a mile away, where the community's maize, beans, and squash grow. A few other men join him, and soon a small file of farmers disappears into the green wall of forest, their tools clinking softly, voices already planning the tasks of weeding and planting to be done. The women remain to continue their household duties. One young mother hoists the heavy water jar onto her head and, with her daughter skipping at her side, walks to refill it at the cenote beyond the plaza. Another begins to grind achiote seeds, crushing the red pods to make dye for cloth and seasoning for food. The grandmother has finished spinning a skein of cotton and now ties her backstrap loom around her waist to resume weaving under the shade. The courtyard is alive with industry. Chickens cluck. Children sing a counting rhyme as they play a game of pebbles. The thud-thud of a stone mortar pounding spices punctuates the air. Despite the bucolic calm, life's hardships are never far. The people's hands are calloused, their backs often bent from carrying loads and working fields. A closer look reveals a few old scars on the men's legs, from machete nicks or thorny vines, and some women bear slight burn marks on forearms from years of tending fires and comals. Childhood illnesses and lack of modern medicine mean not every child survives to adulthood. Most families have felt the sting of loss. A tiny graveyard at the edge of the village holds small markers for those, a reminder of the fragility of life here. Food can sometimes run low, especially at the end of dry season before the next harvest. On those days, everyone tightens their belts and makes do with thinner gruel and fewer tortillas. Stomachs may ache with hunger, but complaint is rare. They trust the gods, and the turning of seasons will provide in time. They have also learned to supplement their diet with what the forest offers: wild yam roots, chaya greens, pitahaya fruits, and protein from hunting or fishing when possible. It is not an easy life by any means. Survival demands constant labor and vigilance, but it is their life, bound to the rhythms of nature and community. In the evenings, when the men return dusty and tired, the little cluster of homes will come alive again with storytelling, children's laughter, and the soft melodies of a simple flute or a drum if someone plays. They will recount the day's events, whose field yielded a good harvest of squash, who spotted a deer's tracks by the stream. They will give thanks around the hearth for whatever meal they have, and perhaps make a small offering of a tortilla or a few drops of balsam to the household gods, the Maya deities of the home and hearth, in gratitude for surviving another day. Music, dance, and feasting will mark special times like the harvest or a festival for a patron god, binding faith and labor in harmony. But on this ordinary morning, as the sun climbs higher and the villagers disperse to their various tasks, the prevailing mood is one of quiet determination and contentment. Under the ancient ceiba, a few elders remain, sitting and observing the day's work commence. One old man, with a carved walking stick, gazes up at the great tree's trunk, disappearing into the sky. He remembers when he was a boy, and his grandfather told him, the ceiba stands at the center of the world, that it holds up the sky, and its roots reach the depths below. He reaches out and pats the bark affectionately. A giant blue morpho, butterfly, flutters past, briefly landing on one of the ceiba's exposed roots, its iridescent wings like flickering blue flames. The old man smiles at the sight. In this moment of stillness, it strikes him how his people's lives are intertwined with this tree and this land, their homes literally beneath the ceiba, their days bounded by the cycles of sun and rain, growth and harvest, work and rest. The ceiba has stood here long before the village and will remain long after, yet for now it is their guardian. Overhead, a gentle breeze rustles the ceiba's leaves, almost as if answering the old man's unspoken thoughts with a whisper from the gods. Thus passes the morning in the Maya village, a blend of toil and tranquility, of humble labors and profound connections. The villagers carry on with their chores, unaware that anything about their life is remarkable. It is simply the way things are and have always been. children learning skills of their parents, adults providing for the young and the old, and everyone living in tune with the sun, the sacred Seba, and the verdant world around them. In this harmony, they find comfort amid the brutality of daily struggle. Difficulties are met with communal effort. The jungle's threats are faced with knowledge and respect. The day advances, and soon the village will lie quiet in the heat of noon, only to bustle again when the sun softens. But always, the great tree watches, and life continues in its age-old pattern beneath the Seba's benevolent shade. The weight of kings and calendars. In the heart of a grand Maya city, morning's gentle calm gives way to the purposeful bustle of royal obligations. Far from the small village beneath the Seba, here stone pyramids and palaces rise above the rainforest canopy, their silhouettes sharp against the brightening sky. This city, with its towering temples, broad plazas, and carved stelae, is the domain of Ajar, the king. Life for Maya royalty is a world apart from that of farmers in the hamlets, yet it carries its own heavy burdens. The king awakens before dawn in his palace chambers, already mindful of the weight he carries, the fate of the city, the favor of the gods, the maintenance of cosmic order. In the still coolness of early morning, he prepares himself for another day of leadership, under the exacting eyes of both his people and the heavens. As the first glow of sunlight filters through a screened window, King Khan Bahlam, Serpent Jaguar, as he is titled, sits quietly while attendants dress him. The chamber is a modest room of stone walls painted with murals of mythic scenes. The faint light illuminates images of kings and gods on the plaster, reminders of his sacred lineage. An attendant kneels to present a bowl of frothy cacao to the king. This rich chocolate drink, spiced with chili and cornmeal, will sharpen his mind and fortify his body for the duties ahead. He sips it slowly, gazing out the doorway at the rosy sky. In the distance, the lofty temple of the sun catches the dawn's rays. The king's jaw tightens slightly as he contemplates the coming hours. There are petitions from nobles to hear, tributes from distant towns to record, a ritual to lead at midday, and constant decisions to be made for the welfare of thousands of subjects. Authority, he knows, is a double-edged sword. It brings privilege, but also tremendous pressure. His title is Halach Winik, true man, and the Maya believe he is part divine. To him fall the responsibilities of priest, war leader, judge, and shepherd of his people. It is a heavy mantle, one that he must bear with unwavering resolve. The attendants fasten around his waist a belt of woven cotton embedded with jade and shell ornaments that clink softly. Over his head, they place a finely embroidered tunic painted in vibrant dyes of cobalt and carmine. Already, the symbols of kingship weigh upon him. Quite literally, he stands as they drape a heavy jade bead collar across his shoulders. It glimmers a deep green in the dawnlight, every piece of jade carved and polished, representing the bounty of the earth and the ancestors. Jade is as precious as life among the Maya. Wearing it signifies his power and also the burden of history he carries. Next, they carefully position a tall headband decorated with quetzal feathers and a carved glyph of his ruling dynasty's totem, a snake biting its tail. The feathered headdress fans out behind him, nearly a meter high. Each feather is vivid green, donated by the rare quetzal birds from cloud forests far away. The effect is both magnificent and onerous. The regalia transforms the king into a living image of the gods, but it is cumbersome and hot in the growing warmth of the day. One wrong move, and a delicate feather could be bent or broken. Khan Bahlam straightens his spine and endures the discomfort. From youth, he was trained to display dignity and divine confidence at all times. The people must see in him the embodiment of strength and prosperity, never the sweat or strain that might lurk beneath. Once fully attired, the king steps out onto the palace balcony. Below, in the main plaza, the city is stirring. Nobles in embroidered cotton and jade gather near carved stelae that record past conquests and kings' deeds. Commoners bustle about, sweeping the plaza, arranging baskets of tribute goods, preparing for the day's market. A courtier announces the king's presence with the clear note of a conch shell trumpet. Its resonant call echoes off. Stone temples. All activity briefly halts. Heads turn upward to where the king stands. Khan Bahlam raises his hand in a serene gesture of benediction. Even from a distance, the people can see the sun gleaming off his jade collar and the brilliant feathers crowning him. In this moment, he looks every bit a demigod among men, exactly as tradition dictates. A quiet awe falls upon the crowd, and they bow or kneel in respect. This daily appearance of the king reassures his subjects that all is well, that their living link to the gods watches over them. Yet behind the regal visage, the king's mind already churns with concerns. Rulership in the Maya world is fraught with challenges. He must keep favor with powerful noble families, negotiate alliances or rivalries with other city-states, direct the economy, ensure the gods are appeased through rituals, and decide when to make war or peace. The prosperity of the city, abundant crops, successful trades, victories in ball games, and battles, all will be attributed to his merit or blamed on his failings. And above all, he is the chief intercessor with the divine. If drought strikes or disease spreads, the people will look to him to communicate with the gods and restore balance. Each day's dawn thus brings immense pressure to uphold cosmic harmony. Foremost on Khan Bahlam's agenda, this day is a matter of time itself. The Maya are famously meticulous with their calendars and knowledge of the heavens. In the city's hieroglyphic workshop, royal scribes have been working for moons on calculations for an impending calendar milestone. The king strides through a columned hallway toward this workshop now, flanked by a trusted advisor, the court astronomer priest. This aged priest carries scrolls and tables of dates, his forehead marked with tattooed glyphs of Venus and the Sunday. He mutters respectfully to the king as they walk. "My lord, as you know, the completion of the 10th cartoon of our Baktun arrives soon. The long count will roll over another interval. We must prepare the renewal ceremony and the retrospective of your reign's achievements for the stela inscription." The king nods solemnly. Every 20-year period, Katun in the Maya long count calendar is significant, often commemorated with rituals and stone monuments. The upcoming one weighs on him. It will be a time to broadcast his legacy and prove he has upheld Ma'at, cosmic order, thus far. But it also invites reflection. How many more cartoons will he or his line see? He is only mortal, though often treated otherwise. The long count calendar, with its immense cycles, reminds him that time will outlast any king. Entering the scribe chamber, the king is greeted by the scent of copal incense and the sight of busy activity. Young scribes crouch on mats, carefully painting glyphs in black and red ink onto long strips of bark paper, codices filled with astronomical tables and divinatory almanacs. Others, chisel into soft limestone slabs to record dates and events that will later be raised as monuments. The walls are adorned with star charts and eclipse prediction tables. The Maya's understanding of the heavens is astonishingly precise. Their astronomer priests can predict solar eclipses and the cycles of Venus with remarkable accuracy. These predictions are not idle science. They are politically and spiritually crucial. A foretold eclipse might be seen as an omen, requiring a royal bloodletting offering. The appearance of Venus as the morning star can dictate when wars are launched or peace is brokered. The weight of calendars, thus, is not just about marking time. It can mean the difference between prosperity and calamity, war and peace for the kingdom. A chief scribe approaches the king, bowing. He presents a freshly carved panel of glyphs. Khan Bahlam runs his fingers gently over the incised symbols. Each represents a date in the intricate Maya system. The scribe explains, "This records the upcoming anniversary of your sacred enthronement, Great Lord, in the Tzolk'in and Harb calendars. We have aligned it with the rising of Venus, as you requested." The king inspects the series of glyphs. They detail his accession 15 years ago, on a day sign 3 Ajar, his many titles, and the astronomical alignments planned for the anniversary celebration. He sees the Venus glyph shining among them. Indeed, they have timed the ceremony to a date when Venus will emerge brilliantly in the dawn sky, a sign of divine favor in Maya belief, especially since Venus is associated with war and rulership. The king nods in approval. "Excellent. We shall invite envoys from allied cities to witness the ceremony under Venus's eye. It will remind our rivals that the heavens support our reign." Privately, he also notes relief. The calculations match what he hoped. He trusts his astronomers and scribes, but he feels a personal accountability to ensure the calendrical auguries line up. A miscalculation or ill-timed event could spell ritual disaster or embolden dissent. Nearby, an older priest is consulting a 260-day Tzolk'in calendar wheel for today's sacred meaning. The Maya use 2 main calendars, the 260-day sacred cycle, Tzolk'in, and the 365-day solar year, Harb. Together they form a 52-year calendar round, and beyond that, the long count tracks vast epochs. The priest murmurs the day's glyph aloud. Today is 8 Chikchan in the Tzolk'in and 6 Kayab in the Harb. He cross-references, in a well-worn codex, to interpret the omens. Chikchan is associated with the snake and with Kukulkan, the feathered serpent deity. An auspicious day for seeking wisdom, perhaps, but with caution against treachery. The king listens as the priest advises him on the spiritual tone of the day, perhaps a day to petition Kukulkan for guidance in statecraft. These counsels from the calendar guide the king's decisions, whether to conduct a ritual, sign a treaty, or even launch a raid. It is said that the Maya kings rule by the heavens' leave, aligning every state decision with celestial propitiousness. The responsibility to follow these signs is immense. A king who ignored the calendar or brought disharmony between ritual time and real time could doom his city to drought or defeat, at least in the eyes of his people. Khan Bahlam reflects on this as he thanks the priest. How many nights has he stood atop the observatory, peering at the stars, ensuring his decisions align with their patterns? He recalls a night not long after he took the throne. A lunar eclipse had been calculated to occur. He and his priests watched as the full moon darkened and reddened. They performed the proper chants to appease the moon goddess and calm the populace who were frightened by the sight. When the moonlight returned, he ordered a stele erected that recorded how his ritual saved the moon. A bit of royal propaganda built on astronomical foresight. Such is the delicate dance of kingship, using knowledge to bolster belief, using belief to reinforce authority. He must be scholar and showman in one. That night, he had felt the raw power of understanding. By predicting the eclipse, something common folk saw as magical, he reinforced that he indeed had the god's ear. But he also felt the fragility of it. Had the eclipse not come as predicted, his image as a divinely guided king would have cracked. Thankfully, the Maya calculations were correct. They usually are, he muses, thinking with pride of his scribe's intellect and the centuries of observations inherited from their forebears. As midday approaches, the city's energy heightens. The sun climbs toward its zenith, and soon it will be time for the king to perform a crucial ritual of bloodletting in front of the assembled populace. A duty he cannot shirk, for it is through this act that he symbolically feeds the gods and renews the world's order. In the plaza below, crowds gather under a hot sun, fanning themselves with woven palm fans. Warriors in jaguar pelt capes stand guard, and maidens in white are laying out offering bowls and incense burners at the foot of the temple steps. The temple itself is decorated for the occasion with fresh greens and flowers. High atop its pyramid, an altar stone awaits the king's blood. This is the weight of kings. Not only must he carry the intellectual and administrative burdens of rule, he must also literally bleed for his people. Ruling elites among the Maya are expected to perform auto-sacrifice, ritual bloodletting, to sustain the gods and ancestors. The logic is clear. The gods gave their blood in myth to create humans. Now kings give their blood back to keep the cosmos in balance. But understanding it does not make the act any less daunting on a human level. Khan Bahalam removes his ornate feather headdress in preparation, handing it to an attendant, and dons instead a simpler band around his head. He ascends the steep stairs of the pyramid, accompanied by 2 priests. The crowd quiets, except for the low beating of a turtle shell drum and the piercing notes of a flute. The midday sun blazes directly overhead. Sweat beads on the king's brow, but he maintains a serene expression as he reaches the summit. Laid out on the altar is a bowl of copal incense, a stingray spine, and a coil of thorns threaded through with cotton strips. The sight makes even this seasoned king's stomach flutter slightly. He has done this many times, yet the body's instinctive aversion to pain never fully leaves. Still, he kneels before the altar, facing east where the temple faces the sky, and recites chants taught to him by his father's priests. The moment comes. Attendants hold out a shard of obsidian, jet black, volcanic glass, honed to a razor's edge, and the king extends his right hand. With a swift, practiced motion, he pierces the skin of his finger. Blood wells up, bright red against his jade rings. He lets the blood drip onto a strip of parchment in the bowl. Next, he draws a deep breath and takes the stingray spine. In a show of devotion and courage, he passes the spine through his penis, a form of self-sacrifice reserved for high nobility, to offer creative life force back to the gods of fertility. Despite inner pain, his face remains stoic, almost trance-like. A murmur of respect ripples through the crowd at the sight of their king's sacrifice. Some onlookers avert their eyes from the raw act. Others raise their arms in exultation, believing they can almost see the gods drawing near in the wavering incense smoke. Bloodletting by ruling elites is considered absolutely crucial. It legitimizes the king's right to rule and thanks the gods who created humanity from their own blood in the beginning of time. Khan Bahlam knows this doctrine well. He was taught that kings are responsible for cosmic stability, and their blood is the most sacred offering to ensure the sun will keep rising, the rains will come, and maize will grow. Bound by such belief, he endures the ritual without a cry. The priests pass him the thorned cord, essentially a rope studded with long thorns. With closed eyes and quiet focus, the king draws this cord through the wound in his flesh, letting its thorns enlarge the opening so more blood flows. His blood saturates the cotton threads. A priest then takes the blood-soaked parchment and cotton and lights them in the brazier of copal. As the offering burns, thick white smoke curls upward in the sunlight. The scent of copal resin, piney and sweet, fills the air, and the king, pale but composed, sways as if seeing visions in the swirling smoke. According to Maya belief, the rising smoke carries the blood offering to the heavens, transforming it into a gift the gods can receive. In this heightened moment, Khan Bahlam feels a peculiar lightness, a mix of dizziness from blood loss and an almost euphoric sense of duty fulfilled. He has reaffirmed the sacred pact, his own lifeblood traded for the well-being of his people and the appeasement of the gods. The crowd below sees the smoke signal and erupts in relieved cheers and prayers. They believe their king has once again opened a channel to the divine, perhaps even conjured a vision of a serpent or ancestor in the smoke, a common occurrence in Maya ritual when blood was offered. Indeed, many murals depict royal figures experiencing vision serpents after such rites, through which ancestor spirits or gods communicate. Khan Bahlam, as he recovers, imagines he can perceive something in the wisps, maybe the faint outline of a great feathered serpent undulating upward. Or perhaps that is just his mind playing tricks in the bright sun. Either way, he knows that the people must think he has seen a holy vision. It will bolster their faith and his status. Steadying himself, he raises his stained hands to the sky in a gesture of presenting the offering. Ta Yutsil, Ta Bukul, he proclaims in a strong voice, quoting the classic benediction, for our merit, for our sustenance. The priests echo his words. This signals to all that the sacrifice is made on behalf of everyone's merit and sustenance. The crowd roars approval. In their eyes, the king has once more proven he is the indispensable bridge between them and the divine. By early afternoon, the rite is concluded and the king descends the pyramid, aided discreetly by attendants. He is physically weakened but spiritually bolstered. A litter waits to carry him back to the palace, so he may rest and bandage his wounds with herbal salves. As he is borne through the plaza, nobles approach to bow and offer words of admiration. "Great Lord, your sacrifice renews the world," says one. Another adds, "Truly, the gods favor us with you as our ruler." The king nods kindly, but inside, he ponders the fragility of power. These same nobles would likely not hesitate to turn against him if they believed the gods had withdrawn their favor. Say, if a drought persisted or a war was lost. In the Maya political theater, a successful king must keep delivering signs of divine approval, bumper crops, victories, successful rituals timed to cosmic events. The moment he falters, rivals, perhaps even within his own court or family, could interpret it as the end of his divine mandate. Rebellions and coups are not unknown. The king recalls tales of previous rulers recorded on stelae, how the great city of Tikal once suffered humiliating defeat when its king's Khatun ending ceremony was disrupted by an enemy attack, considered a catastrophic omen, leading to years of tribute to a rival state. He is determined not to let such fate befall his city under his watch. As the day wears on, Khan Bahlam attends to more earthly governance matters, receiving emissaries with tribute of cacao, cotton and copal from outlying villages, settling a dispute between two nobles over ancestral land, reviewing the progress of a new irrigation canal being dug to expand the city's croplands. These are weighty, if mundane, tasks that ensure the daily functioning of the kingdom. But even in these administrative actions, the king invokes the divine. When judging the dispute, he consults a small carved figure of a god of justice and utters a prayer for wisdom. When hearing the canal report, he asks if the proper offerings were made to the rain god Chak before disturbing the earth. They were. A chicken sacrificed and a jade bead thrown into the water as payment to Chak's lightning axe. To the Maya way of thinking, nothing is purely secular. The material and spiritual realms intertwine in all royal duties. Toward evening, the king meets privately with his heir, his eldest son, a boy of about 12, who is in training for eventual rule. They climb a narrow stair to the top of an observatory tower, a round structure known as El Caracol in their tongue. Up here, high above the city's noise, a cool breeze blows, and twilight paints the sky in hues of lavender and orange. The king, weary from the day, takes solace in this quieter moment. Together, father and son peer to the eastern horizon, where the first stars begin to prick through the veil of dusk. The boy excitedly points out Venus, appearing as the evening star now. "Look, father, Shuk's Ek, wasp star, is bright tonight," he says, using one of Venus's many names. The king smiles and gently corrects. At dawn, it is called the Great Star of War, and at dusk, it is the Wasp. Remember the dual nature of Venus. The boy nods, absorbing the lesson. They quietly discuss the movements of the heavens. The king quizzes him on the current ton, 360-day year. In the long count, the lad correctly recites it. He asks what it portends when Mars retrogrades near the constellation of the Snake. The boy hesitates, then recalls that it might mean a time of internal strife, and kings often perform strengthening rituals then. The father is pleased. This boy will need to master the cosmic signs and the art of ruling by them. The weight of kingship will one day be his, and Khan Bahlam hopes to prepare him well. He tells his son a truth that his own father once told him. A good king has two sets of eyes, one on the people and one on the stars. Never forget either, my son. The people will judge your actions, but the gods and time itself will judge your soul. You must do right by both. The child nods solemnly, watching Venus twinkle. In his youthful imagination, being king likely seems a glamorous destiny. He does not yet know the solitude it can bring, how one can be surrounded by adulation and yet feel alone on the throne, burdened by decisions that no one else can make. The king places a hand on the boy's shoulder, both a gesture of affection and transference of responsibility, and they descend as darkness settles. Night falls over the Maya city in a spray of brilliant stars. Torches and cressets are lit in the palace and along the temple stairways, their flames flickering in the gentle wind. King Khan Bahlam retreats to his chamber at last, physically drained. The wounds from the bloodletting ache dully, wrapped now in bandages of cotton and herbs to prevent infection. He kneels before a small household altar, Even kings have their personal devotions, and offers thanks to the gods for sustaining him through the day. A carved jade portrait of Kawil, the god of sustenance with a lightning serpent foot, stands on the altar. The king touches its forehead in reverence, then closes his eyes to pray for guidance. He prays for rain to bless the crops, for victory in an upcoming ball game against a rival city, and for his ancestors' wisdom to infuse his dreams. The room is quiet, save for the chorus of nighttime insects outside and the distant beat of a drum where some ceremony still continues. In the plaza, as he finally lays on his woven mat to rest, the king contemplates how brutal and relentless the life of a Maya king can be. He carries not only the earthly concerns of governance, but also the celestial and spiritual accountability for his entire kingdom. If the rains fail, if the stars foretell woe, if enemies threaten, it all comes to me, he reflects, and he must respond with strength and sacred purpose, or risk everything crumbling. The calendars and the throne are intertwined inextricably. Each day's date carries duties. Each passing cartoon expects accomplishments to be recorded in stone. His own name and deeds will be chiseled onto stelae to endure for centuries, as those of his forefathers are. He hopes those future readers, perhaps far-off descendants, or even foreign archaeologists he cannot imagine, will see that he did his part to uphold the cosmic order in a challenging time, that he bore the weight of kingship with dignity, shed his blood when required, expanded the city's glory through wise decisions, and left his son a stable realm. These are the metrics of success for a Maya king, more so than personal comfort or longevity. In the darkness, the king hears a distant roll of thunder. Perhaps Chuck stirs with promised rain or a storm on the horizon. He allows himself a small, tired smile. If rain comes tonight, the reservoirs will fill, and tomorrow the farmers will sing his praises, believing the gods show approval. If not, he may have to consider more drastic offerings, perhaps a human sacrifice of a war captive to appease Chuck. Such thoughts hover at the edge of his mind, but for now, he pushes them aside, one day at a time, one ritual at a time. This is how he must proceed. In that, he is not so different from the common villager rising at dawn to grind corn. Each has their duty, day by day, and must trust in the gods for the rest. Under the same stars that wheel over the humble village, the mighty king finally drifts to sleep, the weight of kings and calendars momentarily lifted from his shoulders as the jungle night envelops the city. Crickets chirp and an owl hoots on the palace roof. The heavens above march on in their precise courses, the Maya king's eternal partners in leadership. By first light, he will be up again, consulting the calendar for the next auspicious hour to address a border dispute or lead a dance in honor of the maize god. But for now, in this quiet reprieve, the brutal burdens of life at the pinnacle of Maya society are set aside, and a weary man finds rest, cradled by the very order he strives to maintain. Drought and survival. The great rainy season has failed. Over the Maya lowlands, the once verdant landscape lies under a relentless sun, and the people face one of the harshest trials of their lives: drought. Weeks have turned into months with barely a drop of rain. The usually lush jungles near the city begin to wilt. Underbrush crackles dry underfoot. Crops of maize, planted with hope at the start of the season, now stand stunted and yellowed in cracked soil. The life-giving reservoirs and cenotes are receding. their water levels dropping alarmingly each day. The vibrant chorus of frogs and insects that normally accompanies the rains is eerily silenced. In their place, the hot wind carries the faint smell of dust and despair. For the Maya, drought is an existential threat, a brutality of nature that no amount of human effort alone can overcome. Survival now depends on resourcefulness, community resilience, and fervent appeals to the divine. In a small farming hamlet not far from the city, the effects are painfully evident. Midday sun beats down mercilessly on the milpa fields. Normally by this time of year, the maize stalks would be taller than a man, leaves dark green and heavy with forming cobs. But today, a farmer and his wife walk through their parched field and see devastation. Many maize stalks have shriveled to half their height, leaves curled and brown at the tips. Where there should be swelling ears of corn, there are scant few kernels. Some cobs aborted entirely. The soil under their sandals is dry and powdery, splitting into spiderweb cracks. The bean vines that twined around the corn's base are dried to stringy husks. The squash plants lie limp, their broad leaves scorched and brittle. The farmer pushes back his wide-brimmed palm hat and wipes sweat from his brow, leaving a smudge of dust on his face. He kneels and crumbles a bit of soil in his hand, hoping to find some moisture beneath the surface, but it falls through his fingers like ash. He exchanges a worried glance with his wife. They have children to feed, and elderly parents as well. This field was meant to sustain them all through the next year. If the rains do not come soon, their food stores will be meager indeed. The farmer stands and silently counts the planting hills that yielded nothing. The burden of providing weighs heavily on him. He feels it in the tightness of his chest. In a typical year, they would harvest enough maize to fill several baskets, storing them in sealed bins for the dry months. They'd save the best seeds for the next planting, confident the cycle will continue. But now he wonders how they'll even have seeds, let alone food. The wife gently touches his arm. We still have some chayote greens and root vegetables in the forest garden, she offers quietly, trying to find a silver lining. They had a small kitchen garden, near a cenote's damp edge, where hardy cassava and malanga roots might survive a bit longer. He nods. They'll gather those, of course, but everyone in the village will be relying on forage soon, and that is not enough for all. They hear a distant rumble of thunder, and both look up hopefully. Far on the horizon, dark clouds are piled high, a potential storm, but the wind is blowing away from them, and the clouds seem to drift off without releasing a single drop over these fields. The rainy season has become capricious, with showers falling in patchy areas and bypassing others entirely. This is the third year of unpredictable rainfall, each one drier than the last, a pattern that makes elders whisper in hushed tones about Hanuitzil-Chak, the four Chaks, rain deities, who must be angry or imprisoned by some cosmic misalignment. The last multi-year drought in living memory coincided with a plague of locusts and fevers. That was decades ago, but the grandparents recall it grimly. Now those memories resurface and fear grows that history is repeating or worsening. As evening falls, the farming community gathers in, the central clearing of their village, under the dim light of a half moon. The air is unusually still and warm for night. Even the usual chorus of nocturnal creatures is subdued, as if the life has gone out of the land. By torchlight, the villagers meet to discuss measures. Their faces are drawn and lean. Already, after successive poor harvests, people have been rationing food. The village chief, a respected elder, with deep-set eyes, addresses them in a grave tone. "We have sent runners to the nearby lakes," he reports. They say even the Great Lake Mirador is a mudflat in places, and fish are dying. The cities upstream are suffering too. Their rulers have demanded extra tribute of food from us, but we can scarcely meet the normal quota. A murmur of distress passes through the crowd. If they cannot send the expected baskets of maize and jars of honey to their overlords, those lords might respond harshly, not caring that drought is to blame. The farmers could be accused of hoarding or rebellion. It's a cruel reality. While nature withholds, human authorities often become more grasping, trying to secure their share first. One middle-aged man, gaunt from cutting trees to help deepen the cenote, speaks up, voice tinged with panic. If the city demands more maize, we will starve. We should hide what little we have for our children. A few nod, but others shake heads anxiously, defying the Ahor. King is dangerous. The elder raises a hand. Calm, friends. We must find balance. Perhaps we can send tribute of another kind, cotton cloth, or our stored copal resin for incense. The city needs those for their rituals too. A woman holding an underfed baby suggests, what if we appeal directly to the priesthood? Show them our empty granaries. They might reduce the tribute temporarily. The chief sighs. We can try, but I fear they will say the gods demand the tribute regardless, or that our misfortune is due to our own lapse in devotion. This leads to the subject that has been on everyone's mind. Have they offended the gods? The conversation naturally shifts from practical measures to spiritual ones. In Maya belief, drought is not random. It is a sign that the rain deity Chake withholds favor, possibly because he or related deities are displeased or require appeasement. All eyes turn to the village shaman, a wiry man with white painted face and a necklace of tiny jade beads. He carries a staff, topped with a carving of Chak's face, round eyes, and a long curved nose like a faucet. The shaman steps forward into the torchlight. I have performed the Chak ceremonies, he says softly, referring to the traditional Maya rain-bringing ritual. We burned copal and called the 4 Chaks from the cenotes of the 4 directions. We cast emeralds into the sacred waters. Yet the rains are still scant. His voice quavers with worry, because a shaman's potency is judged by results. It may be, he continues carefully, that more extraordinary offerings are needed to move the gods' hearts. An uneasy hush falls. They all know what that implies. Human sacrifice. Among the Maya, in dire times, especially to beseech rain, it was not unheard of to offer a life, sometimes even a child or youth, to Chak. The sacred cenote, at distant Chichen Itza, is famed for the remains of many who were sacrificed during droughts, including young boys, cast into its depths as messengers to the rain god. That such a thought is now in their shaman's mind sends chills through the villagers. No, comes a whisper from a mother clutching her son. Others shift uncomfortably. They are a small community. Every life is precious to them. Could they really countenance such a thing? The shaman holds up a hand to show he has not finished. Let us hope it does not come to that. We will first try every other method. Tomorrow, at dawn, we shall hold a puja by the cenote, a prayer gathering. Bring what offerings you can: feathers, jade beads, copal, your own blood, if you are willing. He looks around, making eye contact. Many nod. They can each perform a small bloodletting on themselves, perhaps prick an earlobe or tongue to offer a few drops. That personal sacrifice might prove their sincerity to Chak. They resolve that at sunrise, they'll convene at the cenote's edge, That night is agonizingly hot and dry. The usual cooling effect of the rainforests has diminished. Some say the trees themselves are thirsty and cannot transpire the cool mist they used to. Families toss on their reed mats, kept awake by hunger pangs and worry. In one hut, a farmer's wife rises quietly and steps outside. She gazes at the sky. The stars glitter cruelly clear, not a cloud to veil them. The Milky Way arches overhead, known to the Maya as the world tree or cosmic umbilical cord. She wonders if perhaps the celestial order is disrupted, has some cycle in the calendar completed, or some omen been missed. She recalls talk that this Katun, 20-year period, was to be challenging. Maybe this drought is part of that destiny. The thought both frightens and comforts her. If it's destiny, perhaps all they can do is endure with faith until the cycle passes. She whispers a prayer to the moon goddess Ixchel, protector of women and bringer of rainbows after storms. Then, hearing her baby whimper with thirst inside, she returns, wiping her eyes. At dawn's first light, pale and weak behind a haze of dust, the entire village gathers at the cenote. This cenote is a sinkhole well, a deep natural pool ringed by limestone walls. Normally, its water is a clear aquamarine and brimming to near ground level. Now it has sunk visibly, exposing slimy rock sides and forming a small murky pond at the bottom. Women who come to draw water must now be lowered by rope part way, or climb down a carved staircase to fill their jars. The people line the rim, careful not to crowd too near the edge. The shaman stands at the low altar they've built, a flat stone slab by the cenote's mouth, decorated with carvings of water lilies and fish. The ritual of Chak begins as the sun peeks over the horizon, bathing the scene in orange. They light copal incense. Thick white smoke coils upward and then oddly dissipates in the parched air. The shaman chants, shaking a rattle and calling each of the 4 Chaks by name, imploring them from east, north, west, south, to unite and unleash rain. Assistants place offerings on the altar, handfuls of quetzal feathers, jade beads, shell ornaments, precious things the village can scarcely afford to lose, but they give them freely now. A teenage boy, face set with determination, steps forward with a stingray spine and pierces his own earlobe, letting blood drip into a bowl, a moving gesture for one so young. Others do the same, pricking fingers, drawing thorny ropes across tongues, each offering a bit of their lifeblood to join the pleas rising to heaven. The bowls of blood are then reverently tipped into the cenote's still water, while the shaman casts the jade beads and feathers in as well, so they sink out of sight. These actions have deep meaning. Sacrifices cast into a cenote are believed to directly reach Chak's abode beneath the earth. As they complete the chants, the villagers collectively prostrate and wait in silence, hearts pounding. Will there be a sign, perhaps a sudden cool breeze, or a cloud forming overhead? They scan the sky. A few wispy clouds hang far off, but nothing suggesting immediate rain. The cenote's surface, disturbed by the offerings, slowly grows still again, reflecting the anxious faces peering down. The shaman closes his eyes, hands raised, as if expecting a clap of thunder or a drop of rain on his skin, but none comes. After a long pause, he sighs and signals the end of the ceremony. "We have shown our devotion," he says softly. "Now, we can only wait and trust." Days pass, and still the skies remain a hard, pitiless blue by day and sparkling empty black by night. The small reprieve of dew at dawn is barely enough to moisten a fingertip. In the city, cisterns are drying. Women line up for hours at the last deep wells. The rulers organize teams to dredge and deepen reservoirs, scraping every bit of mud in hopes of finding water. Priests up at the Temple of Chak in the city have taken more extreme measures. Histories carved on stelae mention how in severe crises, children or war captives were sacrificed to coax rain. Indeed, rumors reached the village that at the city's last new moon festival, 2 boys were offered in the sacred spring, a chilling confirmation of the worst. The villagers shudder at this, but also secretly hope it might finally appease the gods. One afternoon, as tension and hunger peak, a dispute breaks out in the village. 2 families accuse each other of drawing more than their share from the communal granary. Angry words escalate. A scuffle ensues. Normally, these Maya villagers are cooperative and peaceful, sharing in good and bad times alike, guided by the principle that no maize ear stands alone in a field, and neither should people. But scarcity strains even the strongest bonds. The village chief intervenes, sternly reminding them that infighting will doom everyone. Ashamed, the families step back. They agree to remeasure what little corn remains and redistribute it evenly under supervision. They also decide to send a small delegation to a neighboring community, rumored to still have adequate water. Perhaps a trade can be arranged, or at least learn how that village is coping. Cooperation between communities can make a difference. Over generations, the Maya built networks of support for such crises, trading salt or dried fish from one area for maize, or beans from another if one had surplus and the other shortfall. But in an extensive drought, everyone is hard-pressed, and sometimes those networks fray. The delegation returns with mixed news. The neighboring village does have a spring in a shaded canyon still flowing. They generously shared a few gourds of water and some cassava tubers. However, they also report seeing columns of refugees on the move, people from even drier regions abandoning their homes to seek water and food elsewhere. Entire hamlets have been left empty, their fields barren. This sends a ripple of alarm through the community. Abandoning the village would be a last resort, almost unthinkable given their deep connection to the land of their ancestors, the very houses often built atop the buried generations of family. Yet, if things worsen, will they face that choice? Some of the oldest, recalling stories of past droughts that lasted years, counsel that sometimes it's better to leave and return when the weather changes. Others argue fiercely that the gods placed them here under the Seba, and to leave the sacred, cenotes, would be betrayal. Better to die on their native soil. It's a heartbreaking dilemma, one that many classic Maya cities may have faced during the Great Collapse periods. One twilight, as the sun sets in a haze of dust, a sense of eerie stillness envelops the village. The jungle is quiet. Streams have dried up, so the chorus of frogs is gone, and the thirsty animals are either lethargic or have migrated to find water. The usual buzz of mosquitoes at dusk is mercifully absent only because there are no puddles left for them to breed. Villagers sit listlessly outside their huts, trying to catch a hint of cooler air. Children whimper with hunger. Parents distract them by pointing out shapes in the reddish clouds or telling old folk tales. The chief steps out and gazes at the sky. The planet Venus glows brightly near the horizon, an evening star. To the Maya, Venus is entwined with omens of change. The chief recalls a teaching that when Venus shines in certain positions, it is time for actions, or that great events can occur. He wonders, is this bright star heralding the end of their suffering soon, or a further trial? The air feels electric, despite its dryness, as if on the cusp of something shifting. And then, in the deep of night, it happens. A distant flash of lightning to the east, followed by a low rumble. Only a few light sleepers notice at first. Then a cooler breeze picks up, rustling the dead leaves. The temperature drops slightly. People awaken and step outside cautiously. Another lightning fork illuminates a bank of clouds on the horizon. Growing clouds. Could it be real this time? The villagers gather and watch the sky, hardly daring to breathe. The stars begin to fade behind an advancing veil. The wind freshens, carrying the scent of petrichor, that unmistakable, earthy smell of impending rain. It's as if the parched ground itself anticipates relief and releases its scent in gratitude even before the first drop falls. A raindrop finally splatters on a hut's thatch, then another on the dusty ground, leaving dark polka dots that evaporate almost instantly. But then comes a sudden downpour. The heavens open with a torrential rain that crashes through the canopy and onto the clearing. Within moments, villagers are soaked to the skin, yet they laugh and cry out in pure joy. Children dance with their mouths open to catch the raindrops, squealing at the sensation they scarcely remember. Women place jars and pots out to collect as much as they can, some weeping openly as they watch the precious containers filling with water. The men remove their hats and let the rain plaster their hair, tilting their faces upward in silent thanks. The ceiba tree's great limbs shake as water pours over its leaves, heavy droplets thudding down like the god's own tears of compassion. Under the downpour, the shaman leads an impromptu prayer, shouting over the din, "Gracias Yum Chak." Thank you, Lord Chak. His painted face is streaked with running pigments and tears. The thunder booms as if in answer, and lightning momentarily turns the night to day. Some toddlers startle at the thunder and cling to their mothers, but are soon laughing again when they realize this storm is a friend, not a foe. The half-empty cenote begins to fill rapidly, rainwater cascading down its sides in muddy rivulets. The villagers cheer as they see the pool rising inch by inch. The thirsty earth drinks deeply. Puddles form everywhere in the clearing, quickly turning to flowing rivulets that snake off toward the fields. All through that night, it rains. Hours of life-giving water soak into the land. The drought is not magically ended. One rain cannot undo all damage, but it is the first real hope they've had. By morning, the world is transformed. The air is cool and sweet, the sky still overcast with gentle drizzle. The jungle seems to sigh in relief as leaves perk up and a green sheen returns to mossy trunks. Birds reappear, singing cheerily as if celebrating. The villagers, bleary from a sleepless but exhilarating night, assess the situation. The cenote is now more than half full. They take careful turns, refilling every storage jar and pot to the brim while they can. The milpa fields show puddled furrows. It's too late for this season's corn, but perhaps the squash vines might sprout new leaves, and the beans might flower again. They'll take inventory soon. For now, they prioritize helping the weakest among them. The children and elderly are given bowls of fresh rainwater to drink their fill, far sweeter than the brackish, shallow well water they'd rationed. The remaining meager corn they have is used to make a thin porridge, stretched to feed everyone at least a little. There is optimism that with rain, wild foods will regrow, and maybe an early bean crop might still come, so they can be a bit generous with stores now. The crisis is not completely over. It will take weeks of continued rains to truly replenish the land. But morale has soared. Survival suddenly feels attainable again, where before grim despair hung over them. They speak excitedly of cleaning and replanting the fields, of perhaps organizing a hunt now that animals will return to waterholes, and of sending messengers to neighbors with news of the rain's return, and maybe to gather those who left to bring them home. The village chief proposes holding a Thanksgiving ceremony that evening to honor Chak and all the gods for this mercy. Everyone agrees wholeheartedly. They will sacrifice a turkey, one of their last. In gratitude, a far happier sacrifice than those born of desperation. They will drum and dance despite their weariness, celebrating life itself. One poignant moment occurs when the delegation that visited the neighboring village prepares to go back out with water and news. They find along the road a small group of refugees, a few families from a further out settlement that had completely dried up. These strangers arrived, ironically, just after the rain began, trudging in soaked and weary. Instead of being turned away, they are welcomed into the village, offered dry blankets and a share of the thin porridge. The villagers know the Maya ethos of compassion. In crises, communities must support each other. For next time, it could be them seeking refuge. Over the coming days, these newcomers will integrate, bringing their own skills and knowledge. Perhaps one is an expert flint knapper, another a midwife, enriching the community that saved them. This is how the Maya endure hardship, through cooperation, adaptation, and faith. At the Thanksgiving ritual under the newly revitalized ceiba tree, the atmosphere is reverent yet joyful. The twilight sky is painted in hues of gold and purple with lingering clouds. The air smells of wet leaves and the copal incense now burning brightly on the altar. The shaman leads a chant of thanks in sing-song Maya verse, praising not only Kark, but also Itzamna, Lord of the Skies, and Ixchel, gentle moon goddess who brought the healing rain, and even Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, bringer of winds. The villagers join in, their voices stronger now, not from full bellies, but from renewed hope. Drums made from hollow logs beat steadily, and someone plays a flute carved of bone that echoes softly among the dripping trees. Firelight from torches dances across smiling faces. Parents hold children close, silently grateful they are alive and can hope to thrive again. Elders raise their hands to the sky, feeling the cool dampness in the breeze, remembering previous rains, and perhaps thinking of those lost to the drought whose spirits might be gladdened by this night's sight. The Maya survived countless brutal seasons like this over the centuries, each time managing to cling on through a mix of ingenuity and spiritual fortitude. They built cisterns and canals to guard against drought, diversified crops, and planting schedules. And when all else failed, they turned to their gods with offerings of what was most precious, including, at times, life itself. Not all tragedies could be averted. History tells of great cities that eventually fell to prolonged drought and resource exhaustion. But in this corner, on this occasion, the people have prevailed. Around the fire, the chief addresses everyone. "We have endured a hard trial," he says, voice thick with emotion. "Remember this day, how our prayers and unity were answered. Let it teach our children that even when life is harsh, our spirit is strong and the gods do hear us. We must take care of each other and of the gifts given, the water, the soil, the forest, so that we may never suffer so badly again." A murmur of agreement passes. The experience of scarcity has taught them wisdom, Perhaps next time, they will plant more drought-resistant manioc, along with maize, or dig another cistern, or forge stronger ties with neighbors to share risk. The Maya have always been resilient and innovative in the face of their environment's extremes, and that will continue. As the ceremony ends, a soft rain begins to fall once more, gentler this time, like a benediction. Laughter ripples through the crowd. They take it as the gods joining the feast. Mothers tilt their infants' heads up to feel the sprinkle on their faces, a baptism of renewal. In the flickering light, you can see young seedlings already pushing up in spots where the ground had been watered. Frogs have emerged, croaking merrily near the cenote, and nightjars call from the rejuvenated trees. The Maya villagers, drenched but jubilant, dance a little longer in the mud, giving thanks that they are alive to feel the rain on their skin and to see another dawn in their beloved homeland. Survival here is never easy. It is often truly brutal, but it is also precious beyond measure, and they embrace it with full hearts as the jungle around them drinks in the life-giving waters of the sky. Blood, stars, and sacrifice. Night in the Maya world is thick with mystery and starlight. The jungle lies dark and humming, and above, the sky is a spray of brilliant stars, as familiar to the Maya as the faces of their kin. The Milky Way swath, which they see as the celestial world tree, or sometimes a great cosmic river, arches overhead. Constellations twinkle, each with its own story and godly aspect. The Maya stargazers have plotted these patterns for ages, finding meaning and guidance in their movements. On this particular night, the celestial omens are potent. Mars glows red near the full moon, and the planet Venus, brightest of all, has just risen on the horizon. Such an alignment can signify a time ripe for power, sacrifice, or decision. In the great city's central plaza, torches flicker in anticipation of a profound and solemn event. Tonight, under the canopy of the cosmos, king and priest and commoner alike will partake in one of the most awe-inspiring and formidable aspects of Maya life, the first practice of sacrifice. By day, the plaza is busy with markets and ceremonies, but now it is transformed into a theater of shadows and light. Hundreds of people gather silently, forming a wide circle around the base of the principal temple pyramid. On top of that towering pyramid, silhouettes move against the starry sky, priests and attendants preparing the altar of sacrifice. The temple itself seems alive in the torchlight, its carved stone facades, depicting ferocious deities and serpents, dance with shifting shadows as flames waver. The air is thick with the pungent fragrance of copal incense, billowing from braziers placed at the four cardinal directions of the plaza. The smoke curls upward, carrying prayers heavenward, and perhaps making the night a bit more surreal, as if separating this sacred space from ordinary reality. The crowd is hushed, many with heads bowed or eyes closed in introspective dread and reverence. Parents keep protective arms around children, elders clasp prayer beads of dried seeds. They know well what is to come and why. Sacrifice is woven into their cosmology. To the Maya, blood is the essence of life and creation. The gods formed humans from maize, mixed with divine blood, according to the Popol Vuh myth. Thus, returning blood to the gods is a duty and an honor, albeit a terrifying one. Sacrifice, especially of a human, is not done lightly. It is reserved for pivotal moments: the inauguration of a temple, the funeral of a great king, the plea to avert a famine, or celebrate a victory in war. Tonight's rite has been proclaimed to dedicate a new temple observatory and to pray for the favor of Venus, the Warbringer, in an upcoming campaign against a rival city. It is also timed with a significant date in the calendar, the end of a 52-year cycle, a calendar round completion, which is both celebratory and perilous, a time when the world must be ritually reborn so it will not end. Such a night demands the ultimate offering. Up on the pyramid platform, a group of elaborately costumed priests begins a slow, rhythmic chant. They wear robes embroidered with glyphic symbols and headdresses representing various gods. One has the jaguar pelt and ears of the night sun deity, another the conch shell and shark teeth of the sea god. The high priest, however, dons the fearsome guise of Kerweel, or perhaps Cheg. Hard to tell in dim light, but his headdress sports a long snout, and he carries a serpent bar scepter. He raises his arms to the sky, and the chanting grows louder. In the crowd below, many join the chant or whisper mantras under their breath. The atmosphere is charged, as if the very stars are watching intently. Soon, two attendants lead forth the sacrificial victim to the edge of the platform, so all below can see. The victim is a young man, likely a captured noble from the rival city-state, or perhaps a specially chosen war captive. He is painted blue, the color of sacrifice, and the Tlaloc rain, deity, and adorned surprisingly with a handsome headband of Quetzal feathers and jade. The Maya often treated sacrificial victims as messengers to the gods, giving them fine attire so they would be received well. The young man's face is serene and stoic, though whether from acceptance, courage, or perhaps the effects of ritual libations is unknown. Two attendants support him by the arms, and he gazes upward towards the sky, where the bright disk of the moon now looms. In that moment, he might represent Uxmal or Tikal, whatever enemy city he's from, being symbolically offered to empower this city's dominance, or he could be a devoted Maya, willing to be a conduit to the gods. At ground level, some mothers shield their children's eyes, though many allow them to witness. It is crucial that each generation understands the gravity and necessity of these rites in Maya belief. Drummers, stationed at the base of the pyramid, begin a deep, resonant drumming that echoes like a heartbeat. The pace starts slow, matching the heartbeat, then gradually intensifies, as if syncing the collective consciousness of the crowd. Flute players join in, their high notes crying eerily over the bass of drums. It is hypnotic. Some in the crowd fall into a trance-like sway. On the platform, the high priest takes a ritual knife. Its blade is obsidian, polished to a mirror sheen, and sharper than any steel, capable of cutting with astonishing ease. The blade catches the moonlight as he holds it aloft. He invokes the gods loudly. Chak, Kukulkan, Tsakol, Bitol, accept this offering and rain your blessings upon us. His voice booms out, amplified by the natural acoustics of the plaza. The people respond with a unified shout, Ajao, meaning Lord, acknowledging the gods. The victim is laid on a curved stone altar that positions his chest upward. 4 assistant priests hold his limbs. In Maya art and inscriptions, this scene is depicted with startling directness, the sacrificial heart extraction. Tonight, in flickering reality, the high priest plunges the obsidian blade into the young man's chest with practiced precision. Gasps and cries echo from the crowd, despite their attempts to stay composed. The man's lifeblood spurts and flows, dark crimson under the silver moonlight, running down the grooves of the stone altar. The priest reaches into the incision and removes the still beating heart. A gruesome, awe-inspiring sight. He holds it high toward the sky, its blood dripping down his forearm. A collective shudder runs through the onlookers. Many fall to their knees, some weeping, some chanting louder to steady their souls. It is said that offering the heart, the seat of the soul, while it yet beats, is the greatest gift one can give the gods. Tajach Yum, the priest cries, to the true gods. He then places the heart in a golden bowl where incense is burning. Immediately, the heart begins to sizzle and smoke in the intense heat of the coals. A thick white smoke billows upward, carrying the scent of burning blood and copal mixed. The priests and many in the crowd believe that in this moment, the boundary between worlds is thinnest, that the rising smoke is actually carrying the essence of this noble life upward to the celestial realm. In that smoke, some expect to see visions, perhaps the face of a god or a serpent forming. Torches flicker wildly as a slight wind picks up. Is it a coincidence or a sign of unseen spirits swirling in? The high priest sways, possibly entering an ecstatic trance. From the combination of intense ritual, the copal fumes, and maybe psychoactive herbs he consumed earlier. In a loud voice, he begins to prophesy, uttering words as if from the gods. The blood of kings nourishes the gods. Venus burns bright. So shall our spears in battle. Chak hears our cries. Rain will bless our fields. The covenant is renewed. The crowd responds with a deep cheer, a mixture, triumph, and relief. For them, this horrific moment is also one of cosmic renewal and hope. They trust that by this sacrifice, the stars are appeased, and fate will favor them. The war planned will succeed under Venus's guidance. Drought will be kept at bay by Chak's satisfaction. The gods are fed, and thus will continue to bestow life. There is an almost palpable release of tension in the plaza. Tears flow not only from sorrow or shock, but from a cathartic sense that their world's delicate balance has been maintained for now. The notion that without such offerings, the sun might not rise, or the rains might stop, or the universe's order collapse, is deeply ingrained. So, amid the sorrow for a life taken is also gratitude. Some call out softly, addressing the fallen youth's spirit. Go with the gods, brave one. Bring us their favor. In fact, it's likely that this young man will be deified in their memory, his name inscribed on a stela at the temple base as a sacred sacrifice given in the year of 8 Ajal, or whatever the date is, so that forever he's honored as part of this city's mythic history. As part of the ritual conclusion, the body of the victim is not neglected. In some Maya ceremonies, the body might be buried with honors, or, in extreme instances, certain parts displayed or ritually consumed by the elite to assimilate the power. There are accounts of warriors consuming a morsel of a courageous enemy's flesh or blood, believing it grants strength. Tonight, the priests symbolically dip strips of paper in the blood pooled on the altar and then burn those papers, so that every last drop of blood is offered via the purifying element of fire. The charred remains are collected to be buried under the temple's cornerstone, a permanent sacrifice to sanctify the structure. The moon has moved across the sky during these proceedings. It's now high above, and a small halo ring of ice crystals forms around it, refracting the light. Many take this as a divine sign, a halo often seen as a positive omen from the rain god or the creator deity, affirming the acceptance of the offering. The stars twinkle sharply. One priest notes that a meteor streaked across the sky at the moment the heart was burned. The blood has been received, he murmurs. With the sacrifice complete, A gentle celebratory ritual ensues. The intensity gradually gives way to reverence and even a strange, calm joy. The drums pick up a more uplifting rhythm. A chorus of young women in white dresses comes forward and performs a sacred dance around the base of the pyramid. They step in unison, arms outstretched like the rays of the sun, or as if scattering invisible seeds. This dance symbolizes renewal and the continuity of life. Their anklets of shells rattle softly, and their movements cast flickering shadows that join with the smoke's patterns. The crowd hums a low melody along with the drums, a song of rebirth taught by ancestors. Now that blood has sealed the bond between cosmos and earth, the Maya also turn their eyes to the stars to read the results. The city's astronomer is present with his staff. He notes Venus shining steadily, no clouds to obscure it. A good sign. Mars's redness will fade in a month, meaning the war window is ideal now, and the constellations align in a propitious manner for their king's lineage. He will later carve these readings on an observatory wall, a record that on this night of such and such date, under the conjunction of Moon and Mars and the rising of Venus, the people offered sacrifice and the heavens gave blessing. It is nearly dawn when the assemblage finally disperses. The family of the king and nobles retreat to the palace to perform private purifications. The king himself had shed a bit of his own blood earlier in the evening, in a personal offering, piercing his thigh or tongue, as he often does, in solidarity, but that is a quieter part of the event. Commoners return to their homes, solemn and tired, yet oddly uplifted. They will talk about this night for generations, how the stars bore witness, and how, afterward, good fortune followed. Perhaps in days to come, rainbows will appear after a rain, or their warriors will return with tales of victory, attributing it to this offering. Such outcomes will reinforce the belief in the necessity and efficacy of the sacrifice. For an outsider, the scene might seem brutally shocking, but within Maya culture, it is deeply meaningful, a cycle of sacrifice and regeneration that mirrors their agricultural life. Maize must die to feed them. The sun dies each night to be reborn at dawn, etc. There is even a stoic beauty in their perspective. The spilled blood on the temple steps is seen not just as death, but as life given to ensure many more lives can thrive. The cosmos, in their eyes, is a grand, delicate machine of which they are a part, and blood sacrifice is the oil that keeps it turning. It's brutal, yes, but also sacred duty. As the first faint glow of sunrise appears in the east, gilding the temple tops with gold, one can see flocks of birds stirring from the trees. The city awakens to a new day, the heavy deed of the night past now imprinted on its destiny. Women begin to grind maize for the morning meal. Men prepare for work or war with renewed vigor. Children open their eyes, having somehow slept through the distant drums, unaware of the dramatic ritual but living in the peace it purportedly secured. Life continues. That is the silent achievement of the night's sacrifice. In the rising light, a few villagers make their way up the temple to gently strew flowers, fragrant plumeria and marigold, over the altar and the path where the bloodstains run. This both honors the departed soul and symbolically feeds the scene with beauty now that the violence is done. The fragrance of flowers mixes with the last wisps of incense. The high priest, now exhausted, remains for a moment on the platform watching the morning star, which is Venus again, having circled the sky by dawn. Perhaps he smiles faintly, feeling that the star winks at him in approval. He looks down at the plaza, where people are dispersing to their daily tasks, farmers heading to fields, potters to their kilns, scribes to their tables, and he prays softly that the gods truly have accepted this offering, so those simple daily joys can continue unimpeded. Thus, in the still cool of dawn, after a night of blood and stars, the Maya city returns to its ordinary bustle. Yet nothing is entirely ordinary. Every act is now touched by the sacred, renewed in the cosmic bargain. They will carry on planting, building, loving, fighting, knowing that when next the calendars demand, they will again offer sacrifices, for that is how the cycle of the world keeps turning. In this way, as harsh as it is, the brutality becomes a form of care for the universe in Maya eyes, and they accept it as the price of living in a cosmos where gods and humans are interdependent. The sun climbs higher, bright and strong, and the people of the city raise their faces to its warmth, grateful for another day under the divine sky. Daily toil and ritual. The sun rises over the eastern hills, spilling golden light onto the Maya villages and cities below. With it begins another day of toil and ritual, the humble endeavors and sacred observances that shape everyday life. For the average Maya commoner, life is a steady rhythm of work, intertwined with moments of prayer and tradition, a balance that makes even mundane tasks feel part of the cosmic order. Though life is often physically brutal in its demands, there is a profound sense of purpose and solace in the rituals that accompany each task and each phase of the day. In a small farming hamlet, roosters crow to announce dawn. A Maya farmer named Toon, meaning green stone, rises from his reed mat as the first light glows through the door of his thatched hut. He yawns and stretches, feeling the familiar ache in his muscles from yesterday's labors. Toon is lean and sinewy. Years of swinging a stone axe and digging stick have etched cords of muscle on his arms. He's perhaps 30 reigns, old years, and already the crow's feet around his eyes and a few missing teeth speak to a hard life. Yet his expression is peaceful as he greets the day. Stepping outside into the cool morning, he pauses at a simple household altar by the door, just 3 stones arranged in a hearth shape, with a little clay figurine of the maize god tucked between them. This represents the heart of the home. The 3-stone hearth is sacred, symbolizing the Maya cosmological hearth of creation. Tun gently taps each stone and bows his head, murmuring, Yum Kax, Lord of the Woods, Animals, and Chark, Rain God, bless this day. He leaves a tiny offering, a few drops of yesterday's atoll, maize gruel, that he's saved in a gourd, pouring them on the ground as libation. It's a small daily ritual, but crucial, acknowledging the spirits before beginning any work, to ensure harmony. Within the hut, his wife Ixiim is already up, nursing their infant at her breast, while also supervising their toddling 4-year-old. The older children, an 8-year-old boy and 6-year-old girl, are outside grinding corn with their aunt. Ixiim will soon join them to pat tortillas. She too has her morning ritual. After feeding the baby, she ties the child snugly in a shawl on her back and lights a bit of copal incense in a dish near the hearth. The fragrant smoke curls upward, and she waves it gently with her hand so it wafts around the hut's interior. This, she believes, chases away any harmful spirits of the night that might linger, and also honors the kitchen goddess, Ix Chel or similar, asking for protection over domestic tasks. The inside of their hut is simple, a couple of woven reed sleeping mats rolled aside, a few clay pots and baskets along the walls, bundles of dried chili and herbs hanging from roof beams. But one corner is dedicated to a little shrine, a painted gourd mask representing an ancestor, set above a small bowl of fresh flowers. Every day, she changes the flowers, if she can, or replaces them with wild aromatic leaves, if flowers are scarce, to keep the ancestors' presence happy and vibrant in their home. Ancestor veneration is part of daily life. They treat their deceased forebears as guiding household spirits. Yaks Tun leaves the hut to begin his field work. Outside, the village is already stirring as others perform their morning routines. Women sweep the dirt yards with twig brooms, sending chickens scuttling. Some men sharpen their machetes on portable grindstones, preparing to enter the jungle to cut wood or clear new fields. The village smells of wood smoke and maize dough, comforting and consistent. Yaks Tun stops by the communal well, a modest hand-dug well lined with stones, or perhaps a nearby cenote, if one's close, to wash his face. Around the well, a few elders gather, warming their old bones in the slanting sunlight and gossiping amicably about the weather and their grandchildren. One old man is softly chanting a hymn to the rising sun, his eyes closed as if feeling the sunlight as blessing. Yaks Tun and others quietly let him finish. It's understood he is performing a small public ritual for all, thanking Kinich Ahau, the sun face of the god, for reappearing this day. Before heading to the fields, Yaks Tun walks to the edge of the village, where a large ceiba tree stands, if one is there. If not, an altar or crossroad might substitute. As in many Maya villages, the ceiba, Yakshe, is respected as the tree of life connecting the worlds. At its base is a simple carved stone representing the earth god or spirits of the land. Yaks Tun bows and touches the ground, saying, "Permit me to work your soil today." It's both superstition and courtesy. He wouldn't want to anger the Alux, mischievous earth spirits, by tromping out without acknowledgement. Sometimes offerings for a good harvest are left here, perhaps a few cacao beans or a bit of balshay fermented honey drink, sprinkled at the roots. In planting season, this spot sees more elaborate rituals. A shaman might bury a ceremonial offering of jade or a tiny clay figurine of the maize god to ensure fertility of the fields. But today, mid-season, a simple prayer suffices, and so Yaks Tun shoulders his tools, a hull, digging stick, for weeding, a flint-bladed hatchet for clearing brush, and a woven basket for any produce or firewood he might collect. As he heads out, his 8-year-old son tags along. This boy, named Balaam, is old enough to start learning how to farm. Father and son tread a narrow sack path that leads from the village to the milpa fields. Along the way, they pass other villagers on similar missions. One neighbor drives a small herd of turkeys ahead of him to forage. Another carries a bundle of empty water gourds to leave at the field hut. They exchange greetings. In Lakech, "I am another you," one may say, and the other responds, "Halaken," and "you are me," a traditional Maya saying of solidarity. Reaching the fields, which are a patchwork of cleared plots amid secondary jungle growth, Yaks Tun and Balaam inspect their maize crop. It's mid-growth. The corn stalks reach a bit taller than Balaam. They see that some weeds have sprung up fast-growing vines and shrubs that, if left unchecked, will compete for nutrients. Today's toil, weeding, it's back-breaking work under a soon hot sun. But first, another little ritual, Yak's tun stands at the field's corner, where a crude scarecrow with a gored head stands to ward off birds. He ties a few corn husk ribbons onto it, which he prepared last night, and quietly asks the field guardian spirit to keep watch. Some might laugh at these small superstitions, but Yak's tun feels better for it. He and Balaam then begin clearing weeds. Yak's tun uses his digging stick hull to pry up roots and his machete to chop tough stems. Balaam follows, gathering the torn weeds into piles. They'll later carry these to the field's edge to compost or burn. The sun climbs higher and sweat beads on their brows. After an hour, both are drenched. The humid tropical heat can be brutal by late morning. Balaam complains of thirst. They take a break under a ramon tree shade. Yak's tun has a gourd of pozole, a cool drink of ground maize and water, strapped to his waist. He shares it with his son. It's bland but hydrating, an ancient form of an energy drink that Maya farmers have used for centuries. As they sip, Yak's tun points out a motmot bird perched nearby with its colorful plumage. In Maya belief, birds carry messages. A motmot, called toe, is considered lucky. See, Balaam, the toe watches us. The spirits approve of our work, he says encouragingly. Balaam nods, smiling at the thought that the bird is a friendly sign. This mixing of observation, the boy learning about birds, with spiritual lesson, is typical. Every facet of nature has layers of meaning. Their break done, they resume work. By midday, they have weeded a large section. Ixiim, the mother, arrives with their midday meal, baby still on her back and daughter skipping by her side. She has brought maize tortillas wrapped in leaves and a bowl of IB beans stewed with squash seeds, protein to replenish the men's strength. They all sit on a log in the shade of a corozo palm and eat together. The little family chatters. The girl shows a woven doll she's made from corn husks, children's toy, and perhaps a little effigy to play at, teaching her nurturing. Ixiim mentions that the neighbor's husband caught a large iguana. They might trade some portion later. Yak's tun discusses how the maize looks. Some leaves yellowing, maybe too much rain last week, and Ixiim suggests making an extra prayer to the rain god tonight, just in case. After eating, Yak's tun lies back for a short siesta, hat over his face. The day's peak heat is unforgiving for heavy labor, so a brief rest is both a luxury and a survival tactic. Ixiim uses this lull to take the children to a nearby stream, to collect water and let them cool off. At the stream, the children splash and giggle. The baby reaches chubby hands to pat the water. The mother takes a moment to rinse her own hair and face. She utters a quiet prayer to the water spirits, perhaps to the goddess Ixchel in her water aspect, or to little sprite-like creatures they believe inhabit streams, thanking them for the refreshment. She fills her water gourds and heads back. As afternoon wanes, Yak's tun and Balaam finish the weeding. They've piled up a respectable mound of cleared brush. Before leaving, Yak's tun does one more thing. He digs a small hole at the field's edge and buries a fish head that he brought a leftover from a catch at the last river fishing. This is an old practice, using fish as fertilizer, but he also frames it as a ritual offering to the earth for continued fertility. It's both practical and spiritual, as so many Maya daily acts are. They walk home as the sun begins to drop, father and son weary but content. Entering the village, they see communal life in full swing. A group of women at one hut are spinning cotton thread and gossiping. At another area, men have collected to repair a neighbor's damaged roof. Working together, some older boys kick around a rubber ball in a dirt clearing, playing a makeshift ball game, not on a formal court, just for fun, though they mimic the rules of the sacred ball game. Balaam runs off to join them for a bit, energized by seeing his friends. Yaxtun, before resting, tends to the family's garden plot behind the hut. Here, Ixiem grows peppers, medicinal herbs, and gourds. Some squash vines snake along the ground, their broad leaves shading chili plants. He notices some insect pests, perhaps caterpillars, on the squash. He gently plucks them off, muttering, "Not today, little arpes, pests. This is our food." He places them on a sacrificial stone and 5-4 squashes them. Small violence to prevent larger harm. Meanwhile, Ixiem is back at the metat, grinding maize for the evening meal, with her sister helping. The rhythmic skirk of stone on stone, is almost soothing. It's said that sound has hardly changed in thousands of years of Maya life. It is indeed a daily toil. Pounding and grinding soaked corn kernels into dough can take hours and occupies much of women's mornings and late afternoons. Studies have found Maya women historically spent about 4 to 6 hours a day grinding corn, which matches Ixiem's own experience. It's laborious, but she often passes the time chatting with other women or humming a hymn to the corn god. Today her sister jokes, "You should have Balaam marry soon, so his wife can take over this task." Ixiem laughs. "The boy's just 8. "Yes, perhaps in another 8 years I'll think of that," she teases back. As dusk approaches, the family gathers for dinner. They light a torch or small oil, lamp for light in the hut. Dinner is humble. Fresh tortillas, bean paste, and a spicy green stew flavored with chaya, a local leafy vegetable, and crushed pumpkin seeds. They eat on mats on the floor, everyone dipping tortillas into the communal bowl. The children squabble lightly over the last tortilla until mother scolds gently. After the meal, any scraps and bones are collected. Some will go to feed the dog or pigs, if they have any, or get tossed beyond the palisade for scavengers. Night falls swiftly in the tropics. Crickets and frogs strike up a chorus outside. In the hut, by firelight, Ixiem weaves on her backstrap loom. A half-finished cotton cloth with bright patterns of butterflies and geometric designs is attached to her waist and a pole. Weaving is one of her skilled crafts, done when other chores are done. As her skilled fingers pass the shuttle back and forth, she murmurs a traditional weaving prayer, taught by her mother, invoking the moon goddess patroness of weaving to guide her hands so no threads break. On the other side of the hut, Yaxtun works on carving a new wooden handle for his axe by firelight. He softly whistles a tune, a farming song about planting and harvest. The children, sleepy, lounge listening to the night sounds. Before the children are put to bed, the family conducts their evening ritual. This is common in many Maya homes. A small prayer of thanks for the day and blessings for the night. They gather by the hearth. Yaxtun takes a bit of pom, incense, resin, and tosses it on the still glowing embers of the cooking fire. It releases a sweet smoke. The family each crosses their arms or touches their forehead to the ground briefly. Together, they recite a simple litany. We thank the Ajar, Lord, for the maize and beans. We thank the earth for its yield. We thank the rain for its water. We thank our ancestors for their guidance. May the night be safe. May our dreams be good. May tomorrow be bountiful. It's not a formal, scripted prayer from any temple, but a passed down home blessing, perhaps slightly different in each household. but with the same heart. The children, even the littlest, are encouraged to say something they're thankful for. The 6-year-old girl says, "I thank Ixchel for the new baby brother." She believes the moon goddess helped bring her sibling. And the boy says, "I thank the maize spirit that our corn is growing tall." These moments instill gratitude and reverence from a young age. The fire is banked to glowing coals. To last the night, someone might wake in pre-dawn to revive it for breakfast. The family retires to their mats. As they drift to sleep, faint noises of the village and jungle echo. A howler monkey far off gives a late grunt. The neighbor's murmur of conversation dies down. A dog barks at something unseen, maybe an alux or just a peccary passing by. Overhead through the hut's smoke hole, the stars shine bright. Daily toil is done, and the people rest under the cosmos they honored through their actions all day. In the city, a similar pattern plays out on a larger scale. Artisans finishing work in the fading light. Traders shutting market stalls with a prayer to the merchant god Ekchua. Warriors off duty, sharing a drink of balshay under the night sky, telling stories of battles and omens. They too mix work with worship. A stone carver sharpening his chisel might utter cha-chak, asking the thunder god's strength for each strike. A mother soothing a crying child might call a blessing of Ixchel to grant health. Every chore has a patron spirit or deity, every effort a ritual dimension. Even leisure often takes on ritual form. The ball game some youths played earlier, while fun, also echoes the sacred ball game myth. They play on a smaller scale, what their gods played with the fate of the world. Sometimes, the community will host a formal ball game match in the local court, with feasting and bets, and that is both entertainment and religious reenactment. The rubber balls movement, seen as symbolizing celestial bodies. The game's outcome perhaps taken as an omen for harvest or conflict. Tomorrow, the cycle starts anew. The farmers will rise to tend maize. The potters will shape clay on mats. The nobles will consult calendars, and scribes will paint codices. The weavers will dye cotton threads. All labor, all worship in its way. The seasons will dictate different tasks. In harvest time, families will work side by side from dawn to dusk, gathering maize cobs, singing harvest songs to thank the maize god. In the planting, they performed the cha-chak ritual, 4 boys acting as frogs, croaking to call rain, while elders chant and sprinkle water, and only then put seeds in soil. If someone falls ill, daily routine pauses as they perform healings with herbal remedies and spiritual prayers, maybe a shaman's cleansing with copal smoke and an egg rubbed over the body to absorb illness. If a drought threatens, as we saw, their toil doubles, but also their rituals intensify. If a baby is born, work stops for celebration, and the midwife conducts ceremonies to introduce the infant to the world, whispering in the baby's ear the responsibilities and greeting it in the 4 directions. Ritual is the thread through the fabric of daily life, giving meaning to the grinding labor and comfort in the face of uncertainties. To an outsider, much of the Maya commoner's day is filled with arduous labor, grinding corn, carrying water, tilling fields with stone tools under a tropical sun, hauling stones to build terraces or temples under elite corvée demands, enduring insect bites and the occasional snake or scorpion encounter, all with no modern conveniences. Indeed, it is physically brutal. Life expectancy might be short, perhaps 40 to 50 years on average, lower with high infant mortality. Malnutrition looms if maize harvests are poor, Injuries can be life-threatening without advanced medicine, and the social stratification means nobles live far easier than these villagers who support them with tribute. Yet, through their unwavering daily rituals and community bonds, the Maya common folk find resilience and even contentment. They frame their toil as part of the divine order. Grinding maize is feeding your family and reenacting the gods. Grinding the corn to make the flesh of humanity. Planting seeds is an offering back to Mother Earth. Sweeping your threshold keeps not just dirt but bad spirits away. Everything has a spiritual aspect, which makes no task truly menial or meaningless. This perspective is what allows them to endure hardships with a sense of purpose. As the night deepens, the village is mostly quiet. A few hearts still glow under star and moon. In one hut, a grandmother quietly tends the sacred fire, ensuring at least a small flame burns continuously, as it's bad luck to let the household fire die out completely. She sits by the embers and dozes lightly, the fire's glow reflecting on her well-lined face. In her half-sleep, perhaps she hears the voices of the ancestors in the crackling logs, or the distant hoot of an owl. She might whisper a final incantation, keep us safe through the night. Tartik, grandfather sky, and Chich, grandmother moon. Outside, a gentle breeze rustles the cacao and banana leaves. Over the village, the saber tree stands tall, silhouetted against the starry vault, as if guarding the sleeping inhabitants. The daily cycle of toil and ritual is complete for this day. Tomorrow, the sun will beckon them to rise and do it all again. Planting, weaving, carving, cooking, each day a thread in the great woven fabric of Maya life. Each day an offering to existence itself, brutal and beautiful all at once. Wisdom, written in stone, scattered across the Maya realms, from the dense jungles of Petén to the limestone plains of Yucatan, stand countless monuments of stone, stelae, altars, temple panels, and hieroglyphic stairways. Upon them are inscribed the wisdom of the Maya, their histories, beliefs, astronomical knowledge, and royal lineages, all carved in exquisitely complex glyphic script. These enduring stones are the pages of a vast stone library, each glyph a word that echoes the voices of scribes and kings from centuries past. Erecting and inscribing these stones was painstaking work, done by skilled artisans who labored with flint chisels and dolomite drills, without metal tools, guided by intellect and devotion. The result was nothing less than time made tangible. The Maya literally wrote time and memory into stone, ensuring that their wisdom would outlast them. Let us journey to the famed city of Copan in the 8th century, where one of the greatest flourishings of Maya writing took place. Here, the sun is just rising, and we find a master scribe artisan named Aj Chak, perched on bamboo scaffolding along the side of a new temple structure. He is at work on an intricate stucco frieze depicting the celestial bird deity and a row of glyphs detailing a king's ancestry. High on the scaffold, he carefully mixes his plaster, a blend of lime, clay, and pulverized charcoal, to a consistency that will hold fine detail. Aj Chak's right hand holds a small obsidian blade, its edge keen enough to carve hairline details, and in his left is a damp cloth to keep the stucco moist as he works. With incredible patience, he etches tiny curls that form the feathered serpent scales, then steps back to assess. Satisfied with the motif, he moves to the next section of glyph blocks. Each glyph is an elaborate composite of images, the faces of gods and syllabic elements that together form words or syllables. He is writing something of import. The date, the 15th of September 2010, 0 inches, the long count, which corresponds to a major period ending. It must be exact. One slip, one misformed dot or bar, could make the date wrong or even a nonsense glyph, bringing shame or ritual danger. Ajchak mutters under his breath the sequence of bars and dots, Maya numerals, he needs to inscribe for each place value of the date. His lips move as he repeats, almost like a prayer. 9 back tunes, 15 katuns, 10 tunes, 0 winals, 0 kains. He carves a long bar for 5 and 4 dots. For 4, that's the 9 back tunes, with practiced precision, then a dot bar combination for 15 ktuns, etc. Each stroke of his obsidian tool cuts through not just stucco, but through time's veil in a way, fixing the ephemeral day into a permanent record. Down below, in the shade of the plaza, a group of children watch the scribe at work. One day, perhaps one of them will be apprenticed to the scribal house. The Maya scribes, called ajtsib, writers, are an esteemed, but somewhat secretive class, often drawn from nobility or skilled artisans patronized by the court. The children chatter among themselves, picking out glyphs they recognize. That one is the Tsikin, bird sign, says a boy, pointing at the celestial bird glyph. And there, that's the Kinsun, day symbol, a girl adds excitedly, recognizing the circle with a dot. Indeed, the Maya made efforts to teach at least the basics of their glyphs to noble youths. And here is evidence, children already literate enough to spot common symbols. To them, Ajchak on the scaffold is both artist and magician, turning stone into story. Elsewhere in Kopan, within the palace compound, a different scene of knowledge unfolds. In a courtyard shaded by ornate roof combs, there is a scribal workshop buzzing with quiet activity. Several scribes sit on mats with codices, screenfold books of bark paper, spread before them. These codices are precious. Only a handful will survive into our future because of climate and Spanish purges, but at this time they are plentiful. A scribe named Ix-Yol, a woman unusually, but indeed some scribes were female, carefully applies her brush to a page. Her brush is a thin reed frayed to a soft tip, and her inks are natural pigments, black from soot, red from cinnabar, Maya blue from indigo, and palygorskite clay. She outlines a glyph of an ajor, lord sign in rich black, then fills it with vermilion. She's copying an earlier text as part of training, or to create a second copy for archiving. Across from her, an elder scribe reads aloud from another codex. It sounds like poetry or myth. He recites a passage about the hero twins, legendary figures from the Maya creation story. As he speaks, the younger scribes listen and occasionally pause their painting to commit the cadence to heart. The workshop smells of copal incense, kept always burning near the idols of patron deities of writing, perhaps Thoth like Itzamna, or patron goddess Ix, Chel, and slightly of the sharp lime used to prepare the bark paper. This environment of learning is where Maya scribes glean the wisdom of their forebears, astronomical tables for predicting eclipses, and Venus's rise, the genealogies of kings, the proper calendar wheels to divine auspicious days, medical remedies written as glyphic recipes, even bawdy humor or philosophical riddles. Maya texts could cover all aspects of life. On one wall of the workshop, A painted mural depicts scribes in ritual. One figure holds a stylus and offers a glyphic mat to a seated lord, signifying the presentation of knowledge or tribute of writing. It's a proud reminder to these scribes that their work is valued at the highest levels. Scribes often accompanied delegations, recorded treaties and tributes, and were keepers of prophecy. The Chilambalam, or jaguar priests, were essentially scribes who wrote prophetic almanacs. They conceptualized themselves as part of a divine calling. The Maya, word for scribe, literally is he of the holy writings. The ritual dimension of writing is emphasized. Before writing a new stela, offerings are made. When finishing a codex, they sometimes put a final glyph saying taba, meaning it is finished, and possibly performed a closing prayer. Even ink preparation could be ritualized. For example, offerings of blood in the ink to sanctify it. Consider the creation of the amazing Dresden Codex, one of the surviving Maya books. Perhaps in a city like Palenque or Chichen Itza, a team of scribes collaborated to compile centuries of astronomical observations into its pages. One scribe, eyes squinting in concentration, draws a Venus table, 5 columns of numbers, correlating the appearances and disappearances of Venus as morning and evening star over a 104-year cycle. His colleagues double-check the math, which likely came from observations over generations recorded in older logs. They cross-reference carved stelae that note when Venus rose and war was declared. Indeed, they have evidence of how kings timed war to Venus's cycle. They encode this wisdom in the codex so future priests can read, on such and such day, Venus emerges. Beware, for 5 days enemy spears strike. Writing these almanacs is laborious. The scribe must align columns perfectly on the bark pages, ensure no numerical error. The Maya place enormous trust in these books. An error could misguide rituals or kings. When finished, they call in an astronomer priest to ritually anoint the codex with a drop of sacred water and say blessings, then carefully fold it up between carved wooden covers for safekeeping in the temple library. Such codices, though fragile, carry the intangible wisdom, not in stone, but in portable form, used by elite to consult the heavens' will. Back in Copan, as midday sun beats down, Ajchak finishes the sequence of glyphs he was carving. He climbs off the scaffold to rest his cramping hands. He has effectively published the latest chapter of Copan's history in stone. It announces that, on the 15th of September, 2010, 13 Ajar 8 Yaks, the king, Waxaklajun Uba Kawil, dedicated this temple and commemorated 20 years of peace, etc., with the god's favor. When commoners come for the dedication ceremony, they will see these glyphs painted over in reds and yellows, and hear the royal AJ, kin, speaker, proclaim their meaning out loud. The stone thus becomes a monumental memory. For as long as the city stands, and even beyond, as long as someone can read, that wisdom remains. Ajchak runs his calloused fingers lightly over the freshly carved glyphs. They feel smooth, artistic, yet permanent. He knows well that stone can endure far more than paper or flesh. In a way, this is his bid for immortality. Many scribes subtly sign their works. Some stelae have, "This is the painting, carving of so-and-so," in small glyphs. Perhaps Ajchak scratched a tiny personal glyph at a corner. Perhaps not. Maybe only king's credit. Scribes remain anonymous heroes. Either way, he's left a legacy. The brutality that sometimes accompanies knowledge in Maya society must not be forgotten. Scribes often served the regime's propaganda needs. They sometimes glorified wars in their texts, extolled sacrifices, as we've seen, or wrote pointed curses. There's a late classic vase with writing that threatens anyone who would steal it with an awful death. Crafty intellectual property protection. And if a city was conquered, the victors might deface or smash the monuments of the vanquished, a literal effacement of their wisdom. Copin's own history shows, after the 16th king was beheaded in a coup, the usurper deliberately changed texts to legitimize himself. Thus, knowledge in stone isn't always safe. Damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory, happened when carving out a face or glyph. Yet ironically, even in such destruction we glean truth. We see evidence of conflict and political drama. The Maya also had libraries of sorts. At places like Palenque or Tikal, there were archive rooms with bundles of books and earlier stellar fragments. The scribes guarded them. When threats loomed, like the Spanish invasion, some Maya reportedly hid codices in caves or burned them themselves to prevent desecration by foreigners. One can imagine, on the eve of a colonial assault, a circle of aging Maya priests in a remote mission deciding to commit their beloved books to flames or concealment, tears in their eyes, to protect their sacred wisdom from defilement. It's poignant that of thousands of codices once in existence, only 4 survived to modern day, but the stone inscriptions survived far more. In that sense, the wisdom written in stone was indeed the most enduring, outlasting the collapse of classic cities and telling their tale to us now. Fast forward to the present, metaphorically, a modern Maya descendant stands at a ruin, running hands over glyphs her ancestors carved. She might not decipher them on sight, though some do learn, but she feels a deep connection. This stone still speaks. Thanks to epigraphers, we've deciphered much of the script. We know names like Kainich Janab, Pakal of Palenque, Yaks Passage, Chan Yopat of Copan, etc., and even can read about eclipses, rituals, lineage sequences in their words. We learn that on Copan Stela 31, it describes he was born, he possessed, scattering, a ritual, he acceded to throne, he died, a life in 4 glyph phrases. We see they had the concept of 0 in their calendar, the earliest in our hemisphere, and a place value math system that allowed enormous calculations. On an unassuming stone panel, an artist scribe scratched a record of the orbit of Venus accurate to within 2 hours over 584 days. Extraordinary. We realize these stones hold not only royal pomp, but scientific observation, encoded in bar and dot tables. The Dresden Codex, though not stone, contains an eclipse table that could predict lunar eclipses by the Saros cycle, 18-year cycle. That was knowledge passed among scribes, sometimes painted on walls or stelae for events. Truly, a library's worth of information was chiseled in stone across the land, collectively telling the story of a civilization's mind and soul. The brutality that such precious knowledge could be lost, and was nearly, through conquest and decay. But ironically, the carved stones themselves endured jungle overgrowth and held out until archaeologists and Maya epigrapher descendants could crack their code in the 20th century. Now each year, more texts are read. A stucco panel from Zoltan reveals a scribe's workspace with walls of calculations, like chalkboard notes, about calendars beyond 2012. showing they projected cycles many centuries on. The wisdom in stone was so advanced, and yet got misunderstood for ages. For example, the 2012 phenomenon, misinterpreting a cycle turn as apocalypse, returning to our time in the classic era. As evening cools the air in Copan, Aj Chak and his fellow artisans gather their tools to head home. The newly carved inscription will dry overnight. Tomorrow, they'll add finishing touches and paint. Under a thatched shed, the stone carvers store their chisels and stone abraders carefully. They too have a ritual. One carver takes a pinch of pulverized stone dust from the day's work, essentially their carving's essence, and sprinkles it at the base of a stela, of its Samnaj, a patron of learning. With a quiet prayer, "May our work please you, Lord of Knowledge." The others nod, heads bowed. Then they disperse into the dusk. Aj Chak passes by the hieroglyphic stairway of Copan, 63 steps each covered in glyphs, the longest text known in Maya civilization. He pauses, reading a few signs he knows. It recounts dynasties and battles. He gently pats the stone. He had a hand in restoring part of it after an earthquake, recarving broken glyphs from battles, an older text. He's essentially part of this narrative now, he thinks to himself. What I inscribe today will be read by unborn eyes. Long after I join my ancestors, these stones will speak. It's a comforting thought to him, a form of immortality. In Maya belief, doing work that upholds cosmic order, which includes keeping accurate history and calendar, is a sacred duty that will be rewarded in the afterlife. Satisfied, he heads home, where in his own house he keeps a stone tablet of his family lineage, not grand like a stela, but meaningful, names of parents and their parents. He'll add his name and his children's to it in time, leaving that wisdom etched for his lineage. The night sky twinkles overhead, and one by one, household fires flicker on across the valley. In the king's palace, the royal librarian priest might be rolling up a jaguar skin bundle containing codices after an evening of consultation. In a humble hut, a mother might be telling her children the story painted on a broken piece of a carved panel they use as a metat support. This shows Chak Chel, great rainbow, pouring water. That's why we pray to her for rain, she explains, passing on wisdom drawn from stone to her young ones orally. The physical inscriptions and the oral traditions support each other. Thus, knowledge is transmitted generation to generation, sometimes by stone texts, sometimes by voices around the hearth, often by both. Over centuries, many stones will fall, texts erode, cities empty. But the wisdom written in stone ensured that the Maya story, their science and worldview were not lost to oblivion. Twilight of the classic era came, but dawn of knowledge retrieval came much later, when those glyphs were finally read again by their descendants and scholars, a triumph of decipherment. Every carved line by those ancient scribes is a precious gift to future humanity, a message that says, "We were here, we knew the stars, we counted the days, we honored our gods, we lived and remembered." It is hard-won wisdom. Each stone block might have taken weeks of labor under hot sun. Each codex page hours of careful painting by flickering lamplight. But the Maya believed knowledge was worth the effort and pain. For them, carving history into stone was a duty to truth and time. And indeed, as we now gaze on these stones in museums or in the jungle, we find their wisdom still speaks. The Maya concept of time's cyclic nature, their resilient agricultural techniques, their respect for balance between people and cosmos, all encoded in their art and text, are lessons we can still learn from. Those stones whisper across a millennium, know your past, attend to the heavens, cherish knowledge. In this way, the brutal toil of carving and the brilliance of thought converge in each Maya inscription, leaving behind a legacy in stone that shines as one of the greatest intellectual achievements of the ancient world. Twilight in the temple cities. As the chapters of day and history draw to a close, we find ourselves at twilight in the temple cities. The once brilliant sun now drapes the western sky in hues of burnt orange and dusky purple. A warm, golden light washes over the stone pyramids and palace tops of a great Maya city, perhaps Tikal or Calakmul, as if the very stones are glowing from within. In this gentle fading of the day, there is a profound sense of peace and reflection. The clamor of daily work subsides. No more masons chiseling, no ballgame noise, no marketplace bargaining, just the natural chorus of evening. Cicadas trill, distant monkeys howl their last territorial cries, and birds in the ceiba trees call out as they settle into roosts. The city's silhouette, stepped pyramids, lofty roof combs, the stelae casting long shadows across empty plazas, stands majestic and strangely eternal in the half-light. We witness an aging priest astronomer named Na-Ek, first star, slowly ascending the steps of Ek, the tallest temple pyramid. He leans on a staff. His once straight back is a bit stooped with years of stargazing and ritual carrying, and his cotton robes are threadbare at the hem, yet his eyes still gleam with undiminished clarity. This sunset climb is his nightly ritual. Atop the pyramid, his observatory, he greets the first stars as they appear. Tonight, Venus glitters low on the horizon, and the crescent moon hangs like a cradle in the darkening sky. Na-Ek seats himself on a worn stone bench at the summit, facing west. From here, he can see across the canopy a few wisps of smoke rising from house fires in distant suburbs. But mostly the world feels hushed and expectant. He withdraws a small pouch and takes out some crushed copal resin. With flint and tinder, he lights a coal in a tiny clay brazier he brought. He sprinkles the copal and fragrant white smoke coils up, carrying his silent prayers. This is his solitary vespers. He thanks the sun for its journey and welcomes the night's guardians. In his mind, he may be reciting lines from the Maya creation myth, how the hero twins turned into sun and moon. Or perhaps he is counting the calendar, marking that today was 5 Khan 12, Kumku, and tomorrow will be 6 Chikchan, 13 Kumku, ensuring the sacred count stays unbroken, even in his thoughts. Below him, the city also transitions to night. In the royal palace compound, torches are being lit along corridors. The king, now an old man as well, sits in his chambers where scribes read to him from codices, perhaps the very astronomical tables Na-Ek once helped update. But the king's eyelids droop. He's weary. He dismisses the retinue so he can step out to his balcony and just breathe the twilight air. For a moment, he is not a king worried about tribute or heirs. He is simply a man watching the sunset, remembering the many sunsets of his youth when he and his now departed brothers would race up temple steps or chase turkeys in the brush. Before duty shackled him, he looks at the temples, the same stones his father and grandfather looked at. He wonders, will his grandchildren keep them as splendid, or will jungle vines someday cover these carvings? It's a fleeting, melancholic thought, perhaps an intuition that these glory days aren't forever. History tells us Many kings sensed the oncoming twilight of the classic era in the form of more wars, failing crops, unhappy commoners. Out in the commoner neighborhoods at city's edge, families finish supper. A grandmother casts a bit of tortilla into the fire, a customary thanks to the fire god, and a tiny divination. If it crackles loudly, that's good luck for tomorrow. Young children are already curled on mats, the older ones begging for a bedtime story. An uncle might oblige with a familiar tale. He recounts the story of Vukub Kakwix, the arrogant bird demon, and how the hero twins defeated him. As he narrates by the fire's flicker, shadows dance on the hut wall, making it easy to imagine the great bird shrieking and the brave twins aiming their blowguns. The kids listen, wide-eyed and sleepy. Outside, fireflies begin to wink in the bushes. The Maya call them Niktail Tunsul, little stars of the earth, believing they are mirrors of the sky's stars, or perhaps the wandering spirits of ancestors keeping watch. This particular twilight in our scene is not just the end of a day, but symbolically the end of an era. We could be around late 9th century, when many grand cities are feeling strain. Water is scarce from droughts. Some harvests have failed. Na-ek, the astronomer, has noted in his codices that fewer stellae are being raised by kings lately, a sign that confidence and resources are waning. He's heard rumors from travelers that in some regions, people are abandoning cities to find water or avoid strife. But here now, perched above his city, he tries not to dwell on fears. Instead, he focuses on the beauty of this twilight and the enduring cycles of the sky. Orion rises in the east, the 3 stars of his belt, perfectly aligned as they have been for millennia. No matter what befell cities, the stars remain constant. It comforts him. He recalls a teaching from his mentor long ago. To know the stars is to never be lost in darkness. It was metaphorical as well as literal. The Maya took solace in the order of the heavens, even as earthly things fell apart. As twilight deepens to night, Na-ek traces with his finger the outline of the Pleiades cluster, which they called Tzab, the rattle of the snake's tail. It's said that when Tzab stands overhead at midnight, it's the season to start burning fields for milpa. Such wisdom is being passed less reliably now because younger folks scatter, but he hopes someone will remember. Down in the plaza, firelight illuminates some standing stelae. One is toppled and broken, maybe from an earthquake or a marauder from years back. In twilight gloom, it looks like a fallen giant. It bears the likeness of a queen who ruled a century ago. No one alive met her, but her stone face still smiles serenely at the vanishing sun. This juxtaposition, the silent stone watching the end of day, the living flesh and blood moving in flickers around, is poignant. Twilight is an in-between time, and indeed the city seems caught between past greatness and future uncertainty. Bats flit out from crevices in temple eaves, zipping through the mosquito-rich night air. The Maya associated bats with the underworld, Camazots, the death bat from the Popol Vuh. As one swoops near his perch, Na-ek offers a polite wave. Even death's symbol is part of the natural order. In one outskirt area, a small procession forms. A pair of priests carry a bundle on a litter. Inside is a sacred relic, perhaps the bones of an ancient king. Periodically, as maintenance, they remove this bundle from its temple shrine and let it breathe night air while saying prayers. The faithful follow holding candles and incense. It's a bit like a twilight vigil. The idea is to reinfuse the city with ancestral spirit by literally parading their essence around the periphery. After a short circuit, They return the bundle to the temple of the founder and re-entomb it with offerings of copal and a few drops of the current king's blood. This quiet ritual goes unnoticed by most, but in a way, it's a last attempt to call upon old powers to sustain the city's fortune. How many times have they done this? And will it be enough? We know historically many centers weren't sustained, yet the people persisted, shifting to smaller villages or new hubs, carrying their culture with them, albeit transformed. Na-Ek rises to his feet as his joints stiffen in the cooling air. He takes one last sweeping view of the city he loves. In the dim blue light of early night, the temples and courtyards are ghostly outlines. Palm roofs of houses glint where hearth fires inside send sparks up through smoke holes. It's peaceful now. You'd hardly guess the intense dramas that transpire by day or transpired in years past. Perhaps he imagines how one day jungle might reclaim these structures if humans depart. Already, he noticed saplings sprouting between stones in unused buildings. The forest, patient and eternal, will gently pry apart each pyramid, given enough rainfall and time, letting parrots nest where kings once sat. The thought might sadden him, but perhaps he also accepts it. It fits the Maya cyclical view that all rises and falls and rises again. He murmurs a line from an old poem, or something akin to it, like the corn we sprout, we tassel, we seed, and return to earth, only to be sown anew. Twilight is both an end and a promise of dawn. The knowledge he and his forebears recorded will not vanish utterly. It will live on in the descendants and stones, awaiting renewal. Satisfied, he descends the pyramid carefully, torch in one hand, lighting the steep steps. On the horizon, lightning silently flickers in a far cloud. Perhaps rain for tomorrow, perhaps just heat lightning. The stars continue their slow wheel overhead. Families in the city sleep and dream. Some may dream of ancestors giving advice, others of the maize god promising abundance, or maybe of a dreaded upheaval. Some attuned souls might foresee the coming changes in dreams. But for now, all is still. This twilight scene could be taken literally, the decline of classic Maya in the 9th century, or metaphorically, for any era where an old way fades. Yet twilight is not only an ending, it heralds the night, which in turn eventually yields a new dawn. Indeed, the post-classic period saw reorganization and new centers, Chichen Itza, Mayapan, etc. And much later, the Maya living today still carry the ember of that civilization, though much changed. The temple cities had their twilight, but the Maya people survived, their spirit and cultural core intact through oral tradition. Even as the monumental buildings ceased, as the night deepens fully, our vantage drifts upward. We gaze down as if from a bird's view in the moonlight. The temple city is a cluster of grey shapes among dark foliage. A thin mist gathers in low plazas. Fireflies blink over causeways. The sounds of nightlife, a distant jaguar's cough, frogs peeping near reservoirs, weave a lullaby. In the sky, the Milky Way arches. The Maya saw it as the road of souls or the celestial river. It's astonishingly clear. Without modern light pollution, it casts a subtle glow. One by one, torches are snuffed as the last priests and astronomers retire. Only a single light perhaps remains at the astronomer's tiny hut by the city edge, Na-Ek's humble abode, where he pores over a codex even late, unable to sleep because old scholars are like that, chasing one more solution for aligning calendar dates of two chronologies. But eventually, even he sighs. and closes the book, letting darkness take over. The city now is ruled by starlight and memory until dawn. If we close our eyes, we might sense the echoes, distant laughter from a feast decades ago, carrying on the wind, or the resonance of a drum from an old coronation drifting through time. The stones soak up these echoes. They'll whisper them to ruins explorers 1,000 years hence. Twilight in the temple cities marks the end of a brilliant chapter, but not the story's end. As long as someone listens, be it an heir in a new town, repeating old songs, or an archaeologist deciphering hieroglyphs, the story continues, merely moving to a new stage. In a way, the twilight of the Maya temple cities invites us to reflect on impermanence and continuity. The grandeur of those cities did not last forever. Jungles conquered them quietly, but the knowledge, the art, the descendants persisted. The Maya today speak languages directly descended from classic Maya tongue. They weave patterns that represent glyphs and cosmic symbols. They practice milpa farming much as before, and many still hold the 260-day ceremonial calendar. Dear, some communities still consult daykeepers for auspicious dates. So the temple cities lived on in the people after the stones were left to twilight. Let us leave the scene with a poetic image. The planet Venus rises before dawn, the morning star, the Maya so carefully tracked. It peaks above the eastern horizon, surprisingly bright, casting a tiny shadow if one could see it. In the sleeping city, perhaps one insomniac, maybe the king, or a pregnant woman, or a guard on night watch atop a wall, notices it. They recall the teaching. Venus is the harbinger of the sun. True to that promise, a faint band of light grows behind it. The approach of day. The long night is ending. Twilight, the morning version, is coming again. So it has always been. Darkness, then rebirth. The temple cities have had their dusk, but the Maya civilization will find its dawn in new forms. The stones might crumble, but the spirit and wisdom will rekindle elsewhere. In new cities, like the Highland redoubts, in folk tales kept alive, even in modern archaeological knowledge, rediscovering them. Twilight teaches appreciation of what was and hope of what will be, in equal, gentle measure. The golden sun's edge cracks the horizon line. Birds erupt in song, and the once somber grey temples turn radiant with the first rays. Another day begins in the Maya lands, perhaps quieter, perhaps changed, but alive. The jungle awakens around the temples once more, vines blooming with morning glories that cascade over carved lintels, as if adorning them for a new era. Thus ends our calm journey through Maya history, from dawn in the jungle to twilight in the temples, a cycle of light and dark, toil and rest, endings and beginnings. In this meditative exploration, we find that even in life's brutality, the blood, sweat, and fears, the Maya endured. There was always a thread of transcendence, through community, ritual, knowledge, and an intimate harmony with nature's rhythms. As we let the quiet of this historical twilight lull us toward our own night's rest, we carry with us a piece of that ancient calm, the reassuring knowledge that even after the longest night, the morning light returns, and with it, hope. If this quiet journey through the brutal and beautiful history of the Maya has brought you rest, feel free to like the video. It gently helps others find their way to this calm corner of history.